should be streaming.
Okay. Good. Let me grab that. Go. No. Okay. So we have expanded our coterie with one member, and as soon as I get my audio stuff working, I can get the show on the road. So we haven't really discussed how Olivier is going to be introduced in this session, but we have established that Olivier's tie-in is through Clinton, a friend of his from his French years.
From my days in the Loire, old boy, from my days in the Loire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to leave it up to you because obviously you guys have done, various steps of the campaign so far.
Well, I mean, pretty much the link thus far has been we're related by common law because Thaddeus was married to my sister, who unfortunately died in a car crash, and I'd been involved in a bit of a scandal, so I'd left the country and I'd been living in Paris and the Loire, and then when it was my sister's funeral I'd come back and I'd reconnected with my brother-in-law and got involved in all this tomfoolery with him, sort of like looking into a strange case of a particular patient, and it had all sort of spiraled from there. The first session was obviously seeing the play based on the King in Yellow, which I'd heard about while I was in France, and I'd been like, oh yeah, we've got to go and see this. And then we sort of went on to look into this peculiar patient.
Yeah, and I thought that we might just fold this introduction of Olivier into a portion of downtime as a thing that was planned for. So this would have been a thing between Clinton and Olivier, arranging for this to happen in the background outside of the spotlight of our two sessions here. So something you agreed on long before, and now is when that's happening. So Olivier is coming, or already has been in London for a while, but anyway, you have already set the date for when
Yeah,
Olivier
and I
is
mean,
going to join up.
as I was chatting to Jason a bit about it, I can easily see we've obviously met in France, and I've sort of said, oh, if you're ever in London, look me up, and send a telegram or whatever, and happy days. I've got my big apartment and studio. So
Yep. So, do we want to put some downtime here after having left Dr. Trollope's house, having talked to him about, well, the case of Alexander Roby? Do we want to put some downtime here and get Olivier on board, or do we want to proceed with the? Because we had some ideas for what to do next.
Well, maybe you could go home to have a.
Well, I was going to
change of
suggest
clothes, and he would be there.
I was going to say, because obviously we're trying to arrange seeing this inspector at Scotland Yard. I'm guessing that's just not something you do like that. You have to arrange an appointment and stuff.
Yeah.
So we could easily be like, oh, it's going to be a couple of weeks before we can see the inspector at Scotland Yard and do a bit of downtime and then sort of carry on from where we left off, basically.
Yep. Okay, so let's do that. It's not going to be a couple of weeks at this point anyway, but we can put down a couple of days. So, Dennis, you had the dates. So, what day was it when we visited Dr. Trollope?
Thursday.
Sorry, the date I meant.
The 1st of November.
1928.
Okay. Yeah, 1928. And as we, because it's the 1st of November, we have been witnessing the steady fall of one of Britain's most brutal winters in recent memory, anyway. And so, like, we already saw quite heavy snowfall on the previous session, and that will be basically the status quo going forward. Nighttime is going to be freezing. There's freezing rain, there's sleet, there's actual snowfall, and it's going to be a motif going forward. So things are progressively getting harder because movement is getting more difficult day by day. And like if it keeps up like this, it will be very difficult in the sort of heart of winter when we get there. But so the 1st of November, yeah, we can put down, let's say, a couple of days there.
One Monday then, if you have to see the inspector. So it's the
So
5th.
it was Thursday, right? I don't exactly know how the Scotland Yard works as far as weekends go, but I presume there's Sunday is probably off, but we could definitely do Saturday with, like, if you wanted to get the
assuming Thaddeus isn't out at one of his clubs again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the 3rd, Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Roger.
Good. So, presuming everyone's fine with it, in the preceding 2 days, we have had Olivier appear with Clinton. You had your arrangements, and is Olivier living with Clinton now, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a premature meeting anyway, but essentially he's been doing one of his magic tours in London, and due to not being particularly good with money and liking a few drinks, etc., gambling, he's run out of money. He's been kicked out of his lodgings because he can't pay for them, so he's staggered over in the snow to Clinton's place and kind of pleaded for a room for now.
Yeah, that's fine. I've got sort of like a large, I suppose, a bachelor pad effectively, with like a little studio out the back. If you've been staying with me for a couple of days, you'll know that I'm currently in the midst of like creating a series of landscapes based on a play we saw, and I pretty much spend like dusk till dawn like in the studio, sort of like throwing paints about and like doing these landscapes. Other times I'm visiting the creator of the play, whose name I entirely forget. It's like Estes or something like that.
Yeah, Talbot Estes.
Talbot Estes. Yeah, because he's got like the original sort of like manuscript that he did his adaptation based on, and he's allowing me to read that in the original French so I can like create these landscapes. And basically he's offered potentially to commission some more works, and I've said I'll give him at least one of these landscapes as like a thanks for the splendid play they put on that we really enjoyed. So I'm really like throwing myself into that. So you'll probably not actually see a lot of Clinton, apart from when he's like eating. He'll just be in his studio like throwing paints about and stuff like that. But yeah, it'll be quite. Obviously that means pretty much you've got the run of like the bachelor pad. There's plenty of space in there. He spends a lot of time like he'll just like fall asleep in his studio and then like wake up. Occasionally goes to his room when he needs to like get a new suit, when like Thaddeus is like, oh, we're going out for like brunch or whatever. You need to like smarten yourself up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to get us right into the action, have you brought Olivier in on this project, so to speak, with Thaddeus? And the fact that you've set up this meeting with Scotland Yard this Saturday?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you say, you do like a travelling magic show, don't you, Olivier? So you've sort of, you know, a lot of the sort of like the tricks of the trade and sort of stuff like that. So I'll have probably introduced you to my brother-in-law Thaddeus, who's a renowned alienist, and I'll be saying, oh, you know, perhaps Olivier could be useful because he understands a lot of these sort of like tricks and like the con men's tricks and like the sleight of hand and stuff like that. So maybe, you know, getting like a different sort of viewpoint might be useful.
I think Olivier would definitely gauge an interest if you'd mentioned the French version of the play.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He might have heard of it, given he's been traveling around London, but I'm assuming he hadn't been to see it. Although he does have a little bit of interest in the occult.
You will definitely have seen, I would say, posters about the Queen and the Stranger, which is the adaptation of Talbot Estes. However, like you've obviously seen the like when the shows are on, and maybe you went to the Scala Theatre where it was going down, and you you would quickly realize that every showing has been cancelled. So that is not something you can or could have seen, but you could be aware of it, and as well as with talking with Clinton about the original change.
I'll have certainly mentioned it and sort of talked very, very roughly about the sort of outline of the play, and probably shown you some of the pictures which I'm doing that like depict scenes from the play. But I'll say I was hoping to go to the second performance, but obviously it like touched something deep in like the hearts of the people who watched it. There was people like rioting and causing all manner of sort of mischief in the aftermath of the performance, and whilst we were there talking to the actors and the playwright himself afterwards, the theatre manager came in and was just like, not having it, and like shut it down. That was like, no further performances, that is all, I cannot be doing with this. And we tried to sort of say like, oh, you'll get more money in because it'll be notorious and stuff like that, but it was obviously just like, I do not want the name of my theatre being attached to this sort of behaviour, and just like locked it down.
Okay.
And I'll explain that I've made a few overtures like in my sort of like creative circles, seeing if I could find somewhere else for them to put the play on, because obviously I'm quite enamoured of it myself. But with us being busy and with me helping Thaddeus out with all of his stuff, and there being a bit of notoriety attached to it, it's not been that easy for me to find an alternate place for them to put it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you have your plans for Saturday to meet with Inspector John Stevens with PH of the Scotland Yard. Are you bringing Olivier with you to that meeting? Okay, so let's hard cut to Scotland Yard, and you've been sat in a waiting area for a little bit. Presumably, that is Olivier. You've been introduced in the previous days as well. You are directed in to. You presumed it was going to be an office, but instead there's an aide who comes and gets you, and you find John Stevens in a. It's a hallway. He has a bunch of papers that he's looking through, and he just quickly glances at you, licks his thumb, and continues flipping the papers, and is like, "Yeah, good day. How can I help you?" Just very distractedly talking to his papers instead of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sort of look over at Thaddeus, expecting him to take the lead. No doubt he's like thumbing through like a fresh pack of like business cards that he's had printed in the intervening 2 days, given like the sort of 1,000 he gave out like over the last
his wrist gun
dispenser,
is ready.
It's not to cheat at cards. It's to.
Thaddeus Morgan.
We're here to on introductions by Dr. Trollope. I believe you are assigned to the case of the Roby murders.
He
back in 25.
Yeah, he glances up again and sighs and says, yes. But I don't have time for that now. So you will be best served by taking your business to Detective Sergeant Lorimer. Good day. And he just exits into presumably his office, and the aide is standing there. It's like, I can take you to the sergeant if you'd like.
Please do.
Okay, so John Stevens closes the door, disappears. The aide can take you to Sergeant Larimer, who is sat behind a desk. There's the aide brings you an extra chair because there's only 2 inside, and closes the door. And the sergeant shakes all of your hands and sits down. So, your business is with some old cases, is it?
It is with Alexander Roby. I am a colleague of Dr. Highsmith of St. Agnes, who has been put in charge of the young Mr. Roby, and he would like a thorough psychological report on the young man in order to possibly release him, well, at least from St. Agnes, to another place. And to do this, we need to look into the background of his trauma, and we believe it started that night in 25 with the murders.
Indeed, Dr. Morgan has been brought in to consult on the case, and I'm sure you can understand he wants to look at all the available evidence before making any sort of medical verdict.
Good. And Thaddeus, please, credit rating.
Credit rating.
Yes.
Credit rating. I clicked credit rating.
There we go. Goodio. So, Larimer takes a bit to remember which case you were talking about. Oh yes, the double homicide instance. He goes to there's a side room with presumably it's as an archive of sorts. He goes there, digs around, comes out with a file.
Whilst he's digging around, I'm going to turn to Olivier and say, now well, one of the reasons I wanted to bring you along for this is when we were talking to Dr. Trollope about the circumstances of the murder, apparently the victims were found with a wound in their chest, but there was no sign of any blood either in their bodies or in the surroundings. Now, I'm entirely at a loss to explain how that might have occurred. I mean, I'm no expert, but I assume anyone getting stabbed anywhere would leave at least some blood on the scene. But I think, with your background in the performing arts and the sleight of hand and illusions and things like that, perhaps you might have some idea about how this was done. Like I say, I'm entirely at a loss, old boy.
I do sawing in half, but not stabbing people. And Olivier is already sort of fiddling with a deck of cards. He always fiddles either with a deck of cards or coins.
But this was chopping with an axe. So
I believe, Thaddy, that they said that they said perhaps it might have been an axe. Given the fact they don't know, I'm assuming they didn't find any weapon. Otherwise, they know what the weapon was.
Well, let's see the report first. And then,
quite right.
Okay, so the detective sergeant comes back in from the archive and sits down, brushes off some there's some ash, and moves the ashtray over and gets some papers out of the way, lays out the case file. Says, so, always happy to help with, well, I suppose the more, I don't know, the police of the mind, so to speak, the medical professionals, esteemed colleagues of ours, very, very pleased to offer you some assistance in this matter. So, and he opens the brown folder and I think it's one of those a little bit old timey ones with this. There's like a bit of twine on it. See, undoes the thing and then opens it, and there's a whole bunch of different kinds of documents inside. So, so he starts pulling them out and talking about them. Obviously, none of you have a police background, so you kind of need help in interpretation anyway.
Do you mind if I ask you, Inspector? Obviously, we've heard a little bit about the
Sergeant.
background. I'm terribly sorry. I'm not conversant with all of this, but the detective sergeant, I apologise. Obviously, we've heard some of the circumstances from Dr. Trollope, and he suggested that perhaps it might have been an axe wielded by someone with tremendous strength that caused the wound. Do I take it from the uncertainty that there wasn't actually a weapon found at the scene?
He digs into the papers, tries and finds there's the what do you call it? The person who does the autopsy, the coroner. Yeah. So the coroner's report statement stuff, and then some of the police reports from the scene, and he goes through them. He reads bits and pieces of them and says, "Aha! Here it says yes." So. No murder weapons were found on the scene. He puts that paper on the side. As far as the wounds go, and he refers to the coroner's report. Let me refer to my notes. Okay, so I take it you've had previous knowledge of the case then, since you knew to ask about the weapons? Asks Detective Sergeant Lorimer.
Briefly.
Indeed, we've had an overview from Dr. Trollope, but obviously, whilst Dr. Trollope is a well-respected medical physician, he doesn't have a policeman's eye for these things. So we wanted to get the official point of view from yourself.
Yes, quite right. So let me go through, and he starts reading out the bits and pieces of the coroner's report that he thinks are relevant to you.
Maybe I could be allowed to see it for myself, Sergeant.
Yes, very good. So he shows you the papers.
Okay.
So, yeah, the pertinent facts that you can pick out are both bodies were found in the downstairs drawing room of the Roby residence where they lived at the time. And it mentions that, well, this isn't in the coroner's report, obviously. Like, you have the police reports as well, because those relate to what was on the scene. So the bodies were in the downstairs drawing room. The door was completely smashed off its hinges despite having been open. So the door wasn't locked, but it was still smashed off the hinges. Then the coroner's report states that Herbert Roby, which is Alexander and Graham's father, there was a stabbing wound above the left collarbone, and the body was completely drained of blood, and there was no blood around the body either. Georgina Roby, however, 2 slicing wounds, front torso and left collarbone. Front torso and one to the neck/head. One of the blows, according to the coroner, was left-handed, and the other was right-handed. And they don't make specific sort of assumptions as Trollope did with maybe it was an axe. They just state that perhaps with a heavy bladed instrument. And let's see. The coroner's report furthermore speculates that it was probably 2 different weapons based on the wounds. So that Georgina got hit with one type of weapon, and then Herbert got a different kind, and that the attacker must have been tremendously strong.
Herbert's wound, is it like from above and down, or?
It doesn't say. There's no angle on it, so to speak.
Well,
But presumably here.
What about the blood? Did they confirm that the blood on the carpet was from the girl?
Yeah. So Georgina had bled. The wounds rather more severe, I guess. At least more gory than Herbert's. But Herbert hadn't bled and was without blood entirely. The police report goes on to talk about the circumstances of the incident. So the glass balcony door of Alexander Roby's upstairs room had been broken from the outside, and Alexander claims to have been there all evening and wouldn't explain what was going on up there, but he claimed responsibility for the murders, as we already knew. Yeah. Also, let's say, Thaddeus, please give me a fast talk roll.
Fast talk.
Yeah, because you've proved your credibility, but let's see if he continues to be convinced of your legitimate inquiries, because he has some more to maybe show you.
Yes. Okay, that's gonna be harsh. Here goes. No. I'm not gonna spend luck.
You want to tank your luck?
No, I do not.
Yeah.
Not for that.
Yep. But yeah, so you have read both the coroner's report, the autopsy report, and then the police report on the scene.
Do they have a transcript of the interrogation where Alexander was taken in?
No.
Where's the transcript from the interrogation, Charlie?
There is no
So
details about that.
You didn't interrogate Mr. Roby?
Well, yeah, he was questioned, yes, but he shows you a report, which is rather short, so to speak. It's they've brought Roby to the station. They've tried to talk to him. He seems inconsolable. He keeps saying that he is responsible for the murders, and they should accept that.
Do you mind if I ask you a quick question? I'm sorry to interrupt, Detective Sergeant. You keep saying that Alexander Roby claimed that he was responsible. Did he actually say that he'd killed them at any point? Or did he just say that he was responsible?
The sergeant goes through the papers on the quick, trying to figure out each place where this could have been mentioned, and he says, I can't find a quote to state that Mr. Roby was saying that he, so to say, wielded the instrument that did the deed.
Is this common for the Scotland Yard to get a confession and ignoring it?
I'm not sure I take your meaning.
I don't think that. And I'm obviously trying to keep the other places good. I'm sure they didn't ignore it. Thaddeus. I mean, after all, the young man was clearly disturbed and he was confined to the appropriate facility.
I'm thinking there must have been something on the side that convinced the acting detective to dismiss this.
Huh.
The detectives do not dismiss cases.
No, not dismiss, but dismiss the confession. They must have found something were there blood on Alexander's
I'm not sure
body?
I'm not sure they have dismissed the confession. That is, I mean, after all, they can't hang a man who's mentally unsound, and he has been placed in a secure facility. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure they can. So this coroner, did he have blood on him, Alexander? I leave through to see if there's any mentioning.
No.
Is it mentioning that he did not have blood on him?
Let's say yes. And from what information you have access to now, the thing appears to be that Alex was upstairs. The murders happened downstairs, and you already talked to Trollop. Trollop said that he went upstairs to see Alex when he came to the house, when the staff called him in. So maybe Alex stayed upstairs for the duration of the thing?
So, did you search the grounds for any prints, any signs of a break-in besides the smashed door to the drawing room?
Obviously, the standard canvas would have taken place. I kind of speak from personal experience, as I was not there the night, but yeah, it doesn't appear from the reports that any unsavory elements were detected, and the one that makes for a perplexing addition to an already confusing picture, if you don't mind me saying. That the second story balcony would have been smashed from the outside.
Yes, and Mr. Herbert having no blood in his body.
Yes, and there being no sign of murder weapons, and then there's at least to me, these things stands out. In addition to the door, it would take quite a bit of force to handle a door in that way, and the fact that we have, or at least from what we know, there is very little to point out who could have done this. Never mind who did do it.
I sort of lean back, sort of talking in a muted voice to Olivia and say, "Thing I can't get over is, obviously I'm no medical expert. I mean, I know a few little bits and pieces I've picked up off Thaddeus, but I gather there's an awful lot of blood in the human body, and the report says that there was none present at all, either in the body or the surroundings. Well, it must have gone somewhere. It can't have just disappeared. And let's assume for the moment that Alexander Roby did commit the murder and somehow drained the body of all blood into some sort of receptacle, whatever that might be. He would have had that on him, or would have had to have moved that for it not to be discovered by the police. Whereas they make no mention of finding like a big vat of blood, or finding it splattered around one of the other rooms or something. And if they were in the house and that's where they were killed, he couldn't have moved the bodies from elsewhere. So that's the bit I keep coming back to. Where did all the blood go?
Clinton, we can speculate later. Right now, we shouldn't take any more of the sergeant's time that we absolutely need to. Has the case been closed, or is it still open?
The case has been closed, as far as I can tell, though the proper records would probably be elsewhere if the case moved anywhere, but from the paperwork here, it seems that the case is indeed closed and no charges were brought upon Alexander Roby or anyone else in this matter, and it is unfortunately an addition to one of those things where it will have to remain a mystery until we come upon something that fits these pieces together.
So if I'm correct from what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the official stance is that Alexander Roby is not guilty of the murders. Is that correct?
He has not been charged or convicted.
I see. I presume due to the lack of actual material evidence.
Yes, and also the lack of charges. Eventually, there are. I suppose the ones to bring charges would have been family, given that all the deceased were members of Mr. Roby's family, and no outsiders were involved.
Well, it's a damned odd business. I'll give you that.
Yes.
Do you have a name of the first officer on the location?
No.
Olivier, before they go, wouldn't mind just sort of peering over the notes and seeing if there's anywhere that comments on the size of the stab wound on Herbert.
On Herbert. I suppose that would be in the autopsy report, and I'd say it's probably like 10-ish centimeters, thereabouts. Like the whole like width of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it make any mention of the... Obviously, I'm sort of relying a bit on out-of-character knowledge here, but obviously they can sort of look at puncture wounds and they can gauge like the rough shape of like the device that was used. Is there any mention of like the knife wound, the stab wound, whatever?
It's not deep, so if anything, it wasn't like a bayonet or like a other like long bladed thing. It wasn't that deep on Herbert.
Does the coroner's report mention any toxicology report?
I don't think it would.
Okay, so Thaddeus has nothing else, but he will read through the report and kind of just to get an idea if this is if the coroner report seem fishy or not. Basically, are they covering up some shenanigans here? So I'm guessing medicine roll to see if it's correctly done.
Yeah, I would even dare to say that this would be a hard one for you because you're not a coroner.
No. And whilst Thaddeus is doing that, I'd like to have a look over the reports with Olivia, because we both, I mean, probably more so Olivia than me, we've both got at least some interest in the occult. And this whole like, oh, they were drained of blood, but there was no blood on the scene, that says not normal to me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sort of, I don't know how this works mechanically, but I'm going to sort of put my head together with Olivia and see if we can like, whether this sort of thing like means anything in an occult sort of vibe.
Okay, so Thaddeus, it seems like a standard sort of police coroner's report to you. Nothing really stands out as being particularly sloppy or anything. And as far as Clinton and Olivier, well, the number one thing obviously for you is vampires. That's an occult staple, but there's, because it lacks some of the sort of classic cultish or like esoteric crime bits, whereby you would find interesting accoutrement at the scene of the crime. However, these people were slain just in a drawing room, minding their business, presumably. So there's no black candles or feathers, or like nothing really stands out in the scene as being particularly cultish in nature.
Okay, so we've had a chance to observe Detective Sergeant Lorimer, who's been telling us about this. See, I'm fairly used to sort of like looking at people from like a psychological point of view. Does he look like he's holding anything back, or he's not telling us the whole story? Because I know there's bound to have been like speculation and sort of talk that's probably not gone into the official reports, just like gossip. So I want to see if I think he's like keeping anything back.
If you want to do that, from like a psychological perspective, he seems like this was a thing that he had almost kind of forgotten about already. But if you want to, you can also try and put up a fast talk roll. Just like you're chatting with him, you're trying to figure him out, and there might be something more he could mention.
I'll give the fast talk a try. I'm not really any good at it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's got me in trouble before. I mean, I had to leave the country before, so. But I'll give it a go. I don't see how I can make this horrible scene any worse.
While he's doing that, Johannes, did you say that? Oh, nice. Did you say that it was just that one stab wound on Hubert? There's no other type of wound anywhere.
Yeah, no, Hubert, just the one on the left collarbone, above the left collarbone, rather wide, not that deep wound, and then that's it for Herbert.
So no blood trauma or anything.
No.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say one thing that has occurred to me is if, say, like the vampire sucks blood and all that. Whatever happens
out loud? Because if he does that,
yeah, I also look across at Thaddeus because I know what his response is going to be.
No, he's not particularly self-aware. All this happened and there was no other sort of struggle. He was not hit. He was not seemingly unconscious, which seems a bit strange to me.
It is a strange case, but I'm sure the yard has it in hand. Thank you, Miss Sergeant Lordo. And he gets up and
I'll have been sort of talking to I'll be talking to the sergeant, like ingratiating myself and sort of saying, look, you look like a man with his finger on the pulse of what's going on around here. Now, a case as sensational as this, there must have been talk in the yard from various people. Maybe the odd thing that didn't make it into the report, speculation. If there's any of that you can tell us about. I mean, obviously it won't go in the official report, but just my own curiosity.
While he's doing that, I'm gonna try to offer Olivia my hand. And should we go outside and have a cigarette?
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Right. So you go.
I'm gonna have the vampire lord over.
Yeah. Yeah, with his cape.
Yeah. And I'll offer him a cigarette as soon as they're out on the.
I don't smoke woodbines.
So Olivier and Thaddeus go outside for a smoke, and Clinton is chatting up the sergeant, and the sergeant.
I'm not chatting him up. We're not that close yet. I mean, we can maybe give it time. A small brunch, etc. But
Yeah.
Do you like landscapes?
Yeah. To be honest, I probably. It may seem as though I'm chatting him up because that's just how I talk to people. You never know.
Yeah, it's been a problem in the past.
Yeah, well, people in England can be so narrow-minded.
Yeah. So you're talking to Lorimer, and he's gathering all the papers and whatnot, putting them in order.
I'll be like helping him out as well. I'm just giving you a hand, before we go, and thanks for your help, and then I'll be sort of like, oh yeah, anything that sort of like talk around the yard.
Sure. So he mentions, well, there was that. Now that I have to admit, I had forgotten about this particular case, but when the papers came in, there was some talk doing the circles, as you do when one of these high socialites gets into some sort of predicament. People tend to dig into others' business. I don't
of course.
personally approve of so much of that.
No, quite right.
But now that you ask, I do remember that there was a claim doing the rounds, which I cannot credit myself. Obviously, I do not have the source, but it is what I heard. That, Mr. Herbert, Mr. Roby, was a widower because his late wife was taken by the influenza after the war. And, well, with that being the case, after he passed, his inheritance would go to his progeny, Graham, Alexander, and Georgina, respectively. And Georgina had already passed in the same instance that Herbert had. So the inheritors would be Graham and Alexander. Now, there was word that after the house was sold and the inheritance was being handled, that there was a clause that Alexander would receive a smaller sum, and Graham would receive the larger portion of the inheritance. And there was a clause in Herbert's will, I presume, that there was a third portion, aside from the one that went to Georgina, but she had already passed. So the third portion would be held until Alexander married, and he would then get that portion in addition to what he had already had. And that would be held until he was 40, and if he had not married by 40, then he would forego that additional portion of the inheritance. And at the time, as far as I know, and he gestures at the folder, like, as far as I know, he was not married at the time. I presume he has not been married since, being in the...
I would assume not.
Like I said, I don't want to put any dirt on anyone. But
no, of course not. I quite understand the detective.
That was the story, yes.
But thank you very much for all your assistance. Very much appreciated. And obviously we'll keep the yard up on anything we should discover. Although I doubt we'll find anything extra, given the excellent and obviously thorough job that the police have done here. It's just a matter of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I'm sure you understand. Paperwork, bane of civilization.
Yes, quite. Sometimes it does get a bit much.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much again for your help.
It was a pleasure. Usually these document requests aren't quite this amicable. I will just say.
No, I understand. Obviously, Dr. Morgan has an interest from a medical standpoint. We don't want to make your job any harder. We appreciate all the work that you've done.
Thank you for your kind words. Now, let me help you. And he goes to get the door.
Thank you, and a pleasant evening to you. And I'll get my hat and my cane and walk out and rejoin the other two.
Yep.
Yeah, you get a hump because. Are we ready?
Yes, I'm quite done, Thaddy.
Good. Let's
Where to now?
Well, I suppose a drink.
Yes, well,
Get things out of our system.
I do have a couple of bottles back at the apartment. If you'd, I could show you my project that I was telling you about, Thaddy, that I've been working on. Obviously, as you're aware, Olivia is staying with me while he's in London. The place is a little messy at the moment, artistic temperament and all, but I'm sure we can all sit down and have a drink. I think I've got some brandy, and we could all consider our next move. Assume, of course, you don't want to go to one of your clubs, obviously, Thaddy. I'm aware you like to keep to a strict timetable with your social affairs.
Oh, you're known as a club. I like that. Is there much card playing in these clubs?
Oh, yeah. Are you a card player, Mr. Fair?
This is the first time he's put his cards away for the whole conversation. He just laughs.
Yeah, I also give you a look when you say that. I'm like,
Is he joking?
No. It's just his way. No, in fact, I first met Olivia over a card game in Paris.
I am known at home as the Great Olivier.
It's quite true in the Parisian gambling circles. Quite true.
Well, and on stage, obviously.
Well, yes, of course. But where do you want to go then? Are we off back to mine, Thaddy, or are we going to one of the clubs?
No, let's go to your place.
Okay.
There's a poker game going on Tuesdays in the Oriental. I could probably introduce you if you're interested.
That'd be very good.
Well, do you want to walk back to mine, Fanny? I know you don't like these newfangled automobiles, but
Yes, especially in this weather.
indeed.
So yeah, let's pulls up his great cloak. Let's go.
I sort of let Thaddeus like walk a little bit in front of them, like in like a very lowered voice. I say to Olivia, I say, unfortunately, my sister Thaddeus's wife died in an automobile accident, and he's a little touchy on the subject.
Okay.
And then sort of speed up a bit to catch him up.
I understand.
Okay, so I presume that we spend the evening at Clinton's study.
Indeed,
Yes.
and I'll be explaining to you all that apparently the details of the will, that there was an extra portion set aside for Alexander Roby in his father's will, that in addition to what he would normally get, but apparently he would only get this extra portion if he had married before he was 40 years old. Otherwise, he would forfeit that extra portion of the will.
I suspected something was going on like that. There's always money involved when it's a banker. It's so tedious.
Well, of course there's money involved, old boy. I mean, haven't you heard? It makes the world go round. Well, one can't get anywhere without money. I mean, think of your own practice, the various equipments and tonics that you buy. All of the money for that has to come from somewhere.
Should not acquire money through dubious methods, and
No, quite not. But I'm sure there's
taking your younger brother's inheritance is certainly a dubious method.
No, Thad, we don't know for sure that that's what happened. I mean, this is just gossip that was around the yard that the detective sergeant told me.
No, that's smoke, that's fire. So, first things first, I don't think we should talk about vampires and other mythology in front of anyone else. I don't know how to do it in France, but that's not how we do it here.
It was, how do you call it, a speech figure.
Yes. I'm sure they had the ideas, but it certainly is I can see why you... Yeah, let's use the word kindred. I can certainly see why you would have that thought.
Well, yes, but it was, I mean, I don't believe in them, as it were, but it did remind me, but possibly with something bigger, almost like an O's, or sucking. But the way I'm seeing it, it sounds like this man was obviously not directly involved with the actual, with weapons, but he must have perhaps requested somebody else do it for him.
Again, I keep coming back to what did they do with all the blood? I mean, just the sheer logistics of it. I mean, I can understand the motivation, abhorrent though it is, of someone arranging for someone to be killed for financial gain.
I mean, under clinical environment, it would be very difficult to drain all the blood without spilling blood.
But that's what I'm saying.
In a drawing room, that seems nigh impossible.
That's what I was saying, Thaddy. I mean, if you were to tell me that you had drained the blood out of, like, all of the blood out of someone in your surgery, I would still be very surprised if you could then get all of that blood out of the surgery without anyone witnessing it. But as you say, in a drawing room without access to medical equipment, it seems virtually impossible.
I mean, even if you're shot in the neck or similar mortality wounds and you bleed out, all the blood does not leave your body.
No, that's why I thought of the, suck everything out.
Yes, I understand. It's just the art is conservative at best, but it does seem. I think we should look into Alexander's friends specific, and he lives through his notebook, this Quarry and Edwards.
I was wondering, you know how I asked whether Alexander Roby had actually said, I've killed them, and they said no, but he claimed responsibility. I wonder if perhaps he thought that he was responsible because of something he'd been involved in, or a group that he'd been involved with.
This is what I'm saying.
So I think you're right, Thaddeus. I think we should look into Alexander Roby's circles of contacts as they were at the time.
Also, I think there might have been two different. Like, I don't think Georgina was supposed to be killed that night.
That would make some sense.
But to do this, I think we need to investigate more about Alexander and his social circles, since he is a son of an influent family. I dare to say the chances that he went to one of the good schools are very high.
I would certainly have expected him as well to be a frequenter of some of the more affluent social clubs in the area. I mean, it's virtually unheard of for someone to have both money and influence and not move in those circles.
Yes, but if he did go to Cambridge or whatever it might have been, this might have been where he found his peculiar interest in. I suppose we should call it the occult.
Well, yes, there are little social groups at universities. They do some strange things.
Perhaps since we have we all move in various circles, perhaps we could put the word out to people we know and see if we could establish precisely what circles Alexander was moving in at the time, and then we could focus our investigations a little rather than sort of scattergunning them.
Yes, I think we should find out who this Quarry and Edwards are, and I think that will bring us closer. I don't think we will gain much to talk to the older brother,
Graham.
Yes, Graham.
Well, how about, Thaddy, that you go to a lot of these gentlemen's clubs. Perhaps you could ask around at your clubs, see if Alexander frequented any of those, and maybe myself and Olivia could talk amongst the creative scene. After all, people with money do tend to act as patrons to the arts. Perhaps we might find out some information that way.
That sounds good. Did you have something more to say, Dennis, on this?
No.
Okay, so how about we spend a couple of days doing the legwork on this, and keep in mind that what we have to use as a springboard is not a lot, especially when it comes to some of these friends that was just mentioning. We have basically their names, and that's kind of it.
Yes, so I guess the easy way would be to find out what school Alexander attended, and then check the other students in his social circle back then, and if one of them is called Corey or Edwards. Other than that, I mean, we can go and ask everyone around for Corey or Edwards, but I'm guessing I'm going to find a lot of Edwards.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm going to propose now is we make a couple of rolls to simulate the next couple of days because it takes a bit to first figure out where to go and then set up if you need to meet someone there or if you need to look at some documents.
And also I need time to do some book reading in them days.
Yeah, because you have finished the Le Roi un Jean. However, you are working on a lot of paintings as well, And I think during this time you will get the actual commission from Estes. So there's some money coming your way if you want to work on this. He's going to buy the illustrations for his book.
Yeah, so the paintings I've been working on at the moment, I've already said I'll give him one of the paintings for free as thanks for the play. So I'll probably like a picture of like the actual like King in Yellow from the play. I'll sort of give him that because that's like the iconic sort of character who turns up at the end, very grandiose and massive. So I'll give him that picture for free, and then, like you say, the commission, and I'll start work on that.
Yep. So let's have, and I entirely forget what kind of helping mechanisms exist in this game. Well, tell you what, we do have an easy answer in that we could just make it an easy roll. Is that it? Is that what they call it?
What, you mean like for an idea?
You can get a bonus die, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they introduced that. Yes, cool. So presuming that you do some collaborative stuff here, and you're looking into, basically you're doing a lot of legwork to figure out the background of Alexander Roby. So whichever one of you has a skill that you would like to use in that, you can roll that, and with the help of others, you can have the advantage die.
I'm guessing the most obvious is credit rating, right? Because we're looking into social circle.
Thaddeus, are you suggesting that I'm just going to splash a load of cash to find this information? Because let me tell you, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
I mean,
you know me too well, brother-in-law. You know me too well.
It's also using your contacts.
Yeah. And also just like walking into, like you did, you walk into a police station basically, and you're like, I am person X. I am acting on behalf of person Y. Show me the files that contain extremely sensitive information. And they're like, yeah, sure.
Seems legit.
Like I say, money opens doors.
Totally legit. Okay, so I suggest that Clinton does the
Clinton,
and we do the assisting.
You realise I do have other things going for me other than my stunning ability at painting, my massive wallet, and my stunning good looks. That is. However, in this case, I can see what you're saying. That a certain amount of greasing palms may be necessary.
I mean, while you're doing that, because I have a little side project. I have to go bleed a pig.
Ooh. Clinton.
Damn!
Clinton with the critical.
Shit. We picked right.
Making it rain palm notes.
That's the second one. Thaddeus had one last session. Yeah, we are the champions, as it turns out.
That's it. Well, when I open my greeting card business in a few years' time, all the money's going to be coming in.
Yep. All right. So, yeah, let us say that it takes. Because we're going to include you going to his school as well to check out what's going on there. Because you rolled a critical success with 1, no less. You will have basically a complete certainty of what's going to be his thing. And let's say, because we were on November the 2nd, when we because it was November. Yeah, 3rd. So November the 3rd. Let's say it's gonna take until November the 6th to get this all in hand. So. All right. So a bit of Roby's background. So. As you already more than well know, he is sort of the archetypal dilettante in that he has never lacked for money. He comes from a very good family. He could have done anything with his life. And what you found is some of what he did with his life. So he dropped out of the Peterhouse College, Cambridge. And then he went to serve in the War Office during the conflict. So he was there. And after the armistice, he spent some time in the Foreign Office, where you've also come to learn that his father, Herbert, was basically retired from the Foreign Office. So he was in the Foreign Office for a bit after the war, doing this and that, and then eventually he resigned to spend his time basically doing the classic dilettante thing, and just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He studied a bunch of fringe interests, so astronomy, art, myth, the occult. So he was a prolific reader, and not so much an artist, but he was interested in art. And of course, he is. Well, that's sort of where his professional life ended, and he never really diverged before he was put committed to St. Agnes. So that is sort of his life arc. You've visited Cambridge, you've confirmed this. You've confirmed a couple of sort of, like, let's say, the astronomy club at Cambridge, some of the occult circles around there. You've gone there, you've talked to some people. You have, with your critical success, I'm just going to underline the fact that all of this, you're absolutely certain of this. So when I say that you didn't find anything really suspect with, let's say, some of the occult study groups at Cambridge, that is absolutely true. Like, it was just folks with maybe a couple of interesting continental books that maybe Olivier has also read in La France.
Mhm.
But it's, yeah, like if someone's reading some occult books that does not occultist make, and you kind of come away with that idea in this case as well. So you don't really find anything suspect in this facet of his life, and you've done a lot of good work establishing that. So something went wrong, but it wasn't here. And you've come to the conclusion, because you have some of these names that Roby was talking to you about. It's maybe like there's something that you're not aware of, like some circle that you don't know about obviously exists, because you have some of these names which Roby obviously feels very strongly about, but they don't come up anywhere in your background study that you did. So they weren't previous students in the same school, at least with him. So while you don't really come up with the answer, so to speak, you come up with a very good sounding of his background, which seems to be kind of the, like, attention deficit dilettante thing. And then something happened. He met some people, and something went really wrong, apparently, because of the murders and whatnot. And yeah.
Did he have any public, like, well, he member of one of the gentleman clubs, or?
Not really. He didn't seem to be going to clubs almost at all. He was interested in his own circles more so than anything else. So rather than going to the club, he would go and do the astronomy.
So as a side diversion from this, if he has this background, and let's say he hasn't, like, just a quick pop over to the bookstore at Harrow's to ask if they know Alexander Roby there.
So you go there like, hey, Alexander Roby, did he buy a lot of books?
Yeah, more or less, but their motto is that they have everything for sale.
Okay.
So I'm guessing with his background, he would be accustomed to that, but it might be one of the more weird bookstores. So maybe, I don't know. But it's if they knew him or not. That's like if he bought his books there.
But he has probably been buying books from there. Yes, certainly. They are not able to tell you more than they can provide you with maybe some of his, again with the critical here, some of his purchase
Great.
from previous years. So yeah, he has bought a lot of sort of the run-of-the-mill occult stuff, a bunch of poetry, a whole lot of poetry of different
Poetry,
kinds.
you say?
Yeah, as you've already, because you visited his cell and he had poetry there as well. So his big things seem to be the occult, poetry, and astronomy. And he has bought a lot of those books over the years.
Okay. Whilst Thaddeus is sort of asking about this, is there... I'm not really sure if I'm phrasing this right, but is there any... We know he's buying like occult books, poetry, astronomy books. Is there any sort of theme to like the books he's buying? You know, like is there any like if someone was doing like a particular field of study and they were getting different books related to that field, you might be able to go like, oh yeah, they're interested in like diseases or whatever because of the books they bought. Is there any sort of like overall theme or that ties the books together?
Not exactly, aside from these three basically categories, but there's something we talked about previously, John, where I mentioned, because you had an idea, I think at the asylum, that you wanted to I wonder, I can't remember now what it was. You had an idea that related to something that you either saw or heard, and then you wanted to try and figure out if it relates to something else.
Yeah, it was because when he
wanted to go to the museum and check out pictures.
No,
of
that was newer. That was in London, but this was away from London. And then I basically said that if you go to London, you go to like hit up the libraries, then you can.
I mean, I think we wanted to buy the books, like the list of books that were in his room.
But it's not that either. It was specifically looking into something. And
it was because when we were in his cell, I showed him the picture of like the yellow sign from the play, and I wrote the word Carcosa on it, and he asked me if I'd seen the Pallid Mask. I showed him the pamphlet from the play.
Yeah. I think I asked you to roll like astronomy or something.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was.
I think you wanted to show Talbot the drawings he made.
Yes, I definitely did want to show Talbot some of the drawings that.
But I think you did that.
I think you already compared the dream passages scribbled by Roby to the original, and also talked to Talbot about them. In either case, like they didn't. Talbot had no idea about that. Damn it! I don't remember what it was now. Okay, so. His book purchasing history unfortunately doesn't lend more clarity in this instance. However, we can return to this if and when I actually remember or go and see the video. Figure out what it was.
The only remotely occult contact I have is Hector McQueen, the owner of the Hellfire Club.
Yep.
So,
I mean, this is the result of what you just did, and I have stuff to move us forward when you wrap this whole thing up. So we will return, John, to this when I figure out what it was that I can't remember now. Okay, so you do the extensive work checking out his circles in Cambridge, and you come up with this picture of a fairly withdrawn, rich young man who didn't really seem to have a direction in his life. Really, he was just dabbling with different things, mostly with his hobbies. And you come back from one of your trips, Thaddeus, and your neighbor, and I've chosen to name her Mrs. Jeffries, who is a retired schoolmistress. So you meet her on the sidewalk there, and you're coming back from one of your excursions to figure out Roby's background, and Mrs. Jeffries waves over to you and says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Morgan. I was just out with the intent of catching some of the fresh air, but I don't think I will go too far with the ground being as icy as it is. But now that you're here, earlier today there was a taxi driver, dreadful driving in this weather. I can't even imagine how he stays on the road. There was a taxi driver, and he exited the cab. There was no passenger there. Looked around, came up knocking on our door, and they were asking if it was the good doctor yourself living over there, and the gestures at your house. And I conversed with him for a little bit. A tall, let's see, on my notes. A tall, dark gentleman who was rather rough in his words in asking after you. And I just thought I'd mention, I didn't take him for one of your regular friends, but I thought to mention it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Jeffries. And he was a cabbie, you say?
Yes.
You didn't happen to catch the number on his cabbie, did you?
Oh no, I have all of my attention is focused on staying upright as it is with these poor bones of mine.
Thank you. Very, very kind of you. And then he spends 5 minutes asking to the kids and all that.
Yeah, all the things, and all the pleasantries conclude, and you're free to go on with your day. And then we have. So now we're on to let's say the 7th of. Let's say it's the 6th still. You guys have
one of the things I would also like to look into is we had the name, obviously Edwards. That's going to be difficult to track down, but we did have the name Malcolm Quarry.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to look him up on your?
So yeah, I want to try and find out a bit about this Malcolm Quarry, because he was apparently connected with Roby, and they were working together.
Wasn't that what we've been trying to do?
You could. We can fold it in there. I've been talking about Quarry mostly because that's the main point that I took. But we can include.
Really
Quarry.
Interested in finding Malcolm Quarry. And
we can talk about Quarry as well. If I can find the damn thing. And Quarry isn't going to be too hard to look into. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we are going to fold this into your excursions over the couple of days. So that was what you learned about Roby's background and associated stuff. And then Edwards, like you said, Edwards is nothing to go on. So we're looking into Malcolm Quarry because that was...
Although, if he worked with this Edwards and Malcolm Quarry, if we find like an associate of like Malcolm Quarry's whose name's Edwards,
named Edwards,
that might sort of like sink in.
That would be the point where you've set up the murder board and then you put the red.
Yes. Red string.
Yep. Okay, so there's a bunch here. Yeah, apologies. I entirely forgot that we can actually fold this in here at the same time. But so I'm going to be talking to you about this stuff again. you rolled the critical, so like you you get the whole thing. Let's see. Okay. So you've come upon, and whatever means you have used, we don't need to focus on those. So this is what you come up with during this time. So you found Quarry's last known address. It's in Westminster. And you come to find that he left from that address in the spring of 1926. So a couple of years ago, at least. And that is the last known address for him. You've talked to the family that lives there now, and they seem to think that he's gone abroad somewhere, maybe. He didn't seem to have any close family. You track down some of his where he's been working, his work history. He worked at the offices of the Royal Society on Piccadilly, and he seems to have resigned in February 1926 from there. He had been employed there less than 3 years, and he graduated from Oxford. And I'm holding a bit of a pause here as I recognize that there, if you're doing notes, it's a bunch to write. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna roll anything more here because you succeeded greatly. So you've located a friend of Quarry's at the Royal Society by the name of Rupert Adams. And Rupert seems to think that Quarry left for the continent. Again, not much more than that, but seems to corroborate with the residents in his previous address. And Adams confirms that Quarry was indeed from Oxford, and he was good with folklore and anthropological history, and that he was very intelligent. As far as Adams knows, Quarry didn't mention being married. He didn't have what they call in the text a girl. And further in the text, they call individuals such as these young lady. So as far as Adams knows, Quarry wasn't really, he didn't seem to have a lot of connections of that kind. You look up Quarry in the records and various offices of Oxford. It seems that he was at Pembroke College from 1919 to 1922, pursuing. Oh yeah, now we get to the good stuff. So he was pursuing a Master of Arts in Anglo-Saxon, and he graduated with a first. So he was really good with the whole sort of like Anglo-Saxon, presumably some of the language, the old folklore, the anthropological history of the Anglo-Saxons, all that good stuff. And he also published a book by the name of British Gods, Religion and Myth in the Western Kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon Britain. Okay. You can pick it up if you want. It's not a problem at all. It's in publication. So it was an academic text.
But best believe I'm going to be having a look through that book. If they're like, oh, the ancient blood-draining god of the Anglo-Saxons. But best believe I'm looking for any mention of anything like drains blood in there. If we're like, oh, this guy that he was knocking around, oh, he was an expert in like ancient, potentially very bloodthirsty societies, and then mysteriously vanished. Best I'm going to comb that book with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, and he had a pseudonym, Varney. Mm-hmm. No, he didn't. It's not quite that on the nose. So he published this book. It's available in your academic bookstores quite freely, and I can give you a summary of the book a little bit later. And we'll just go diving into the material that we have been presented here. So in this montage,
spending a day figuring out what
is going on with Roby. You spend another day, maybe a day and a half even, because you need to do a bit of travel.
Yeah.
You spend the second portion figuring out what you can of Malcolm Corey, and that leads you to Pembroke College. You're tracking down some of his, presumably some people who might have been his contemporaries there that might know something about him. And the professor of Anglo-Saxon at Pembroke, you guessed it, is none other than J.R.R. Tolkien at this time. And he was elected in 1925. And you can get an audience with him, and he will be able to help you as obviously a person of the institution with access to information and previous documents whatsoever. So
yeah, I mean, I suppose if we do manage to get an audience, I'll be trying to portray it as we're potentially interested in crime scenes that might have like a sort of ritualistic or like mythological angle to them, and I'll try and keep it vague because I don't want to be like, oh, we're looking into this crime, this is what's going down, but sort of explain that we're potentially looking into a crime that was maybe influenced by this sort of mythology, and I'll sort of very vaguely give him lots of body drained of blood, stab wounds, that sort of thing, but keep it like a little bit vague so he can't just be like, I assume you're talking about these murders.
Yeah, and presumably you're bringing in the name Malcolm Corey as well.
Yeah,
as that is sort of the lead that you're chasing down here.
Yeah, I'll say we believe that obviously we're looking into this mythological bent. His sort of name was one that sort of bubbled to the surface, but we believe he's left the country. So
yeah, Tolkien doesn't have a lot to add on to like potential like mythologically connected crimes or like shocking instances of sort of modern aping of these ancient Anglo-Saxon things, but he can talk to you a little bit about Corey. It's not like he wasn't really like going down to the pub with Corey, but he let's see. Okay, well, yeah, he mentioned that like he has a copy of Corey's book, and yeah, he has read the book. He corresponded with Corey back in 24 and 25, and that is only a second-hand connection because they knew each other because of the previous professor here of Anglo-Saxon before Tolkien was selected, Professor Dilly, and apparently Professor Dilly, so Tolkien and Corey were discussing a second book that Corey was planning to undertake, and it would have involved witchcraft and ritual, again rooted in the sort of like West Country of England. And he says that he's going to, like, he doesn't have anything in the office for this, so he says that he's going to try and dig up some of the letters if he still has them, but can't guarantee that. And let's see, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, he ends up with just saying that he has dealt with Corey. He had these plans back in the day, but he corresponded up to 1925 and hasn't had correspondence with Corey since then. So like he doesn't know what the current plans of Corey is, or if he's out there doing research for his second book or whatever. He hasn't talked to, or rather written with Corey in years now.
Yeah, so obviously I'll thank the I thank the good professor for his time. As you said, pick up a copy of Quarry's book. So probably on the way back from that, I'll obviously mention to Olivier and Thaddeus what I've found out about this Malcolm Quarry who was supposed to be connected with Alexander Roby, and I'll be like, and he was like connected with sort of like weird like Anglo-Saxon like, pagan like religion and stuff like that. Obviously being the slightly more fanciful artistic temperament, the idea of this being some sort of like ancient ritual, especially given all the work I've recently been doing, has sort of really like captured my imagination. I'm sure Thaddeus probably doesn't approve, but
yeah, you have a lot of material for like flights of fancy here.
That's it, yeah. Because to be honest, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, well, whatever happens with this, we're going to have to carry on afterwards. But like this stuff here, I mean, potentially that could be like my next series of paintings, or maybe it'll allow me to make that break into being like a published author that I've been like trying to do.
Yep. So just to let you know, it says average 2 weeks to read and comprehend. So you can start on that, and we'll figure it out then. The 360 pages. It's an academic text published by Oxford University Press, and we'll get into that as we go, because it's
there.
Oh, that's weird. Your sound keeps seeming to switch from your headphone mic to elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed to flip over to my camera. That's weird. Okay, I can't tell why that would be.
Your audio settings in Zoom, what does it say for your... It's not got like same as system selected, has it?
It cut out the audio feed to me as well now. That's weird.
It's not conflicting with Roll20, is it?
It shouldn't. Yeah, hang on a minute. I'm trying.
Yeah, no worries.
To my video.
Yeah, it's now on your camera. If you try going to the settings for your Roll20, if you set it so it's like got audio and that I want to broadcast to others, nothing disable, then reconnect. That might help.
Yeah, I had to pop back in just to get my camera working. In the meantime, I'm going to get a drink of water.
Okay. How does it seem now?
Seems fine.
Cool. That was weird.
I'll tell you what is weird. My Roll20's just switched over to an entirely different game.
Huh.
That's weird. Let me just exit that and sign back in. I'm not sure what's going on with that.
Interesting. I did it did reconnect me to the thing, which probably then threw you out, but I wouldn't know why it would do that, because it's not supposed to.
Who knows, man? Who knows? I'll just sign back in now.
Yeah. Strange times.
Indeed. Well, I'm getting the feeling that like Thaddeus isn't really on board with the whole like vampires did it.
British vampires, no less.
He's not on board with talking like that in front of an officer.
Police. Yeah. So, roll up in the.
I'd be like,
Yeah, I did it again.
Yeah, I noticed.
Maybe try to disconnect from Zoom and get back. I don't know if that throws off anything.
Yeah, so what does it say on your audio settings for Zoom, man?
It's probably the same thing. You need to. This. I had disabled the speaker in my the mic in my webcam.
Yeah, so
Okay.
in your audio settings for Zoom, does it say where to select a microphone? Does it have your specific microphone, or is it just like the same as system?
It's the headset.
All right, okay.
Yep.
Don't know then.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's a connection thing, which is why I was. I switched the port and I tried to clean the bits.
Yeah.
Bits. So, question.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day,
Back in the day.
let's say you wanna go trying your luck in the promised land or go taking diamonds in Africa. You need a passport, right? And that passport needs to be stamped, confirmed that you have left the country-ish thingy
Yeah.
at some public office, right?
Well, that would be the.
Is that
That would be the
office?
border.
Yeah, but I guess the agency that takes care of like the the British citizens abroad, right? They have a list of that. Or is that a modern thing?
I'm not sure what.
Well, I'm just if we could spend some time and doing some looking into to confirm if he left the country or not.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah. I don't know if they would have cataloged like who has left the country, but even today you will have, depending on the country and other associated stuff, your passport might be marked as you leave the country. But I don't know that they have a like a register of folks who have left the country. That would be quite the thing. But anyway, aside from going to hunt for blood diamonds, I guess, like good colonialists of the time, we instead turn our eyes back to the Anglo-Saxons and their troublesome history.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where was I before this foolishness started?
Since it's Tuesday and Oliver wanted to be
Aha.
introduced to the poker game, if we're not doing anything else, Thaddeus will spend that evening doing that.
Mm.
In the club.
Mm-hmm.
Absolument.
And this also happens to be at the Oriental Club, where all the people who work for the Foreign Office hangs out.
So you will be entertained then for the evening?
Oh, you will play cards and
Absolutely.
try
There we
not to make them feel too bad about it.
Well, that's what comes with the accent. I'm not from around here.
Yes, but since I introduced you, they will take the ire out on me
Ah,
if you make them regret it too much.
they will just have to play well.
All right, so you've learned a lot about both Malcolm Quarry, like considering, and also about Roby's background. We're at the club, presumably. Then Olivier, there's cards. Thaddeus, you can meet with your fellow Gnostics, and Clinton probably at least can eat and sketch.
I'm just gonna kind of like I'm just gonna go around and talk to people while Olivia plays poker, just to confirm or not confirm if they actually have means to track people who leave the country or
not. They will confirm that they do not,
okay.
Unless there's specific. Basically, if you're going about on very specific business, probably someone will know. But if you're a regular person, you want to go to, I don't know, the Americas. They don't know who's on those ships. But if you are working for, let's say, the Crown, someone will know where your ass is, hopefully. But you go around. Olivier, you're having a good time at the tables, playing some cards. Clinton probably sketching in the corner there. Thaddeus, you go about, you talk to some people, you confirm that probably it's very hard to keep track of who goes out and who doesn't. Your eyes hit upon an old newspaper on one of these tables here as you chat with the folks, and it's just blind luck that you it's open such that your eyes catch this particular thing. Let me make absolutely sure that we're correct here. Yeah. Okay. This is Thaddeus. Yeah. Okay, Thaddeus.
Just as being the good host, I will spot Olivia £20 to play for.
You're most kind.
So, fun note, I actually watched the Tolkien movie yesterday.
Oh, nice. Well, yeah, that's a tie-in.
Yeah.
Your success was so great that you also know about his background.
Yeah. Well, now I do. I mean, at least what the movie claims it was.
Yeah. But you now have a handout, Thaddeus. I was trying to get it to work, and now I think it does.
Alrighty.
So you happen to see an older newspaper, and this is what it was open on. So Clinton, are you still doing lake art, or are you the temporary fixation has passed already several days ago?
But it has, but I still think there's something with it, and I'm trying to work out ways to tie it back into the pieces that I'm doing based on the play, because obviously lakes were mentioned in that, so I'm trying to sort of harness that sort of creative burst I had back into the series I'm doing for the play.
Yep.
Is Clinton at the club?
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah, I'm at the club. I'm sat in a corner with like my sketchbooks. I'm not really being like my normal social self. I'm just sort of like, obviously, I've got these these commissions from Talbot Estes. So I'm focused. I've got like my charcoals and I'm like sketching away.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
I'm just sort of sat in a corner, sort of like leg folded across, like.
I come over with the evening chimes and I dump it in front of him on the little notice.
Yep. So
And
I'll.
with my fingers with the cigarette in, with some ash going on.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah. So Clinton, you have a handout. Now.
It appears our friend, Dr. Trollope, was murdered.
Okay, indeed. A tall man in a dark coat
Yes.
fled
even-
into the mall.
And even curious though. My neighbor commented that a cabbie, a tall, dark stranger, was asking about me.
We can't just assume that it's the same person, Dad. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, I'm pretty tall myself, and I do wear a coat when I go out on occasion when the weather's a bit chilly. But I mean, maybe it says here there was a witness to the attack, a newspaper boy, according to this.
Yes.
Maybe we could find out who that is and speak to them. We could get a bit more of a description.
Well, yes, we could certainly do that, and maybe with a little hypnosis, and here. Kills the cigarette.
Stamps it on the newspaper.
No. I'll go see how your friend is doing at the card games, and if he's
I
doing
shouldn't
well,
worry about Olivier. I'm sure he'll be doing fine.
well, you did say he showed up on your doorstep with only the shoes he was wearing, so he can't have been that good.
Well, I've tried telling him before. Even the most skilled person, there's a certain element of luck in these games, and
Yes.
sooner or later,
So
you look
I'll
at
leave
someone
you
out.
to your dueling, and I'll go and see him. And if it goes poorly, I'll extract him, and we'll go see a newspaper.
I see a pattern emerging here, with you extracting me from certain events.
Yeah.
Now all you need is one of those shepherd's crooks as a handout.
Yeah.
I mean, he is French, so he probably thinks the British are awful boss. But I'll just cast a glance over to how sometimes people stand and observe a card game just to get an idea if he has like a stack of chips or he's down to his last one.
And how am I doing?
Is there a skill you have for this particularly?
No, mainly because I took entertainer rather than con artist as my profession. I've got like art and craft magic tricks, which I mean, do with what you want. It's not like an official skill.
How's your sleight of hand, man?
I'm obviously very good at sleight of hand, but as you just said, obviously there's a lot of luck involved in poker as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can use sleight of hand to cheat, so you
Yeah,
can get
that
the
was gonna-
advantage on it.
Absolutely.
That was going to be my question. Is either just straight up luck, or if you're putting your finger on the scale, then
I think considering Olivier is pretty skint, he needs the money, so yeah, he's going to cheat.
Yep. Okay.
I
Sleight
have
of hand.
5 aces.
5 aces.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's doing well. He has a whole stack of chips.
Okay, well, I'll give him an hour. So just sit down and then.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. So
do
Olivier, yeah, you wait, and Olivier cleans the table. So you come away with a hefty pot, because this is a nice club. People here like to gamble with. They're not really the sort of extreme high rollers, but like they're not playing for pennies. So you come away with a nice, sizable amount of winnings.
You won the deed to Titanic. You have to pick it up yourself, though.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I presume you're all set. There has been some development that needs our attention, so
Oh,
I think we should collect our friend Clinton and be on our merry way, if you would be so kind.
yes, of course. If you need to go somewhere more private.
Yes. I take some of his winnings and give it to the serving staff and say he buys a round for the table, and then we leave.
So yeah, everyone's ushered away by a certainly rather brusque Thaddeus. So Thaddeus is probably like tapping his foot like the whole time the cashier like exchanges your chips for actual currency, and yeah, you're on your way. So Olivier, you're good now for several days even of like, very comfortable living. If you want to play it on the down low, you can get by for weeks, I think, if you're willing to compromise. But yeah.
I mean, he is living for free, so.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of running costs, so.
No.
Yeah. All right, so Thaddeus, where do you take the crew?
Well, I guess out for cracking hose.
So the Hellfire Club then.
I see you rolling, Thaddeus and Hayton.
No, it's not Friday. We have a schedule, you know.
Thaddeus is very strict with his debauchery.
I suppose on a Tuesday it's knitting at the Hellfire Club.
No, we will go out in the weather and try to find one of the newsies.
Okay, so where do you go? Presumably, like where this happened. Of course, like do you tell Olivier what's going on?
Yes, I will show the article to him as well.
Yeah. So Olivier, you will have a handout in Roll20 in but a moment.
Ignore the cigarette burn in the top of it.
I suppose in the area of Waterloo place.
Yep. So you're headed into pretty much central London, and to St. James's Park. You were here, I don't know, like a week ago at this point, when Clinton had his Halloween obsession with having a picnic in St. James's Park. And you're back here now, and you can see the just small bridge where the thing happened. You spot the newspaper boy. Let me get some details here to support me. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you spot the newspaper boy trying his damnedest to sell some paper. He looks to be around 12, maybe.
Would you talk to this young boy,
Larva.
Clinton?
Well, he's a little young for me, that is, but...
Well, talk.
He means ask a few questions.
What do you want me to ask? I can't exactly just go up and say, you there, boy, tell me about the murder you recently witnessed.
Well, how about I distract him a little bit with, a magic trick?
Hey, that's a damn good idea. Sort of blindside him, I suppose. Yes. Yeah, but lead on, Olivia, lead on.
So, given, I ask as we walk towards the newspaper, current events, do you carry a pistol, Oliver?
No. I do have this, and he holds up his cane. But he pulls the top a little bit, and you can see that obviously there's a blade of some sort in there. For a desperate measure.
Yes. Good.
Well, I've got to admit, I'm feeling quite underprepared with my simple walking stick. I don't mind telling you.
And your wallet.
I wasn't aware that newspaper boys were quite so treacherous in St. James Park.
His wallet counts as armor.
Yeah, against certain types of enemies.
It's a bludgeoning weapon.
No,
It's so heavy. You
Yep.
have it on like a chain and just.
It's
ablative armor.
Got like a belt round it.
I think someone is trying to close the loops. But never mind. Do your trick, and we'll talk to the boy.
Okay, so you're in the park. You're walking up to this. Let's see. Yeah, they didn't give you a name in the article. So you're walking up to this newspaper boy who, like, noticing you, immediately turns towards you. He has the little, like, newspaper boy cap on, and he's waving a broadsheet your way. He's like, paper, paper. I don't know, like 2 pence, whatever it might have been.
Morning, standard.
I give him X shilling and take a paper.
Oh, gee willikers. How many do you want, good sir? Just
the
starts
one.
laying them out.
Just
At
the one.
least 3.
Just the one. And a moment of your time, if you would.
Oh boy, for sure. Do you just want the one?
Well, I
Okay.
can make another one disappear if you want.
Oh, maybe you would. And I hand the newspaper to Olivia.
Okay, so he opens it up, shows it's a perfectly normal newspaper. He kind of scrooches it up, and I know he tries to eat it, something like that. Just the whole thing completely gone, but then he takes off his hat, pulls it back out, all completely intact. One newspaper.
Just stands there, like, trying to follow your hand movements. Like, wow, mister, you have... That was quite the thing. Are you magic man?
Back in France, they call me Olivier the Great. He doesn't.
Oh, that was great indeed. He's in good spirits now.
So, boy, we understand from that you saw something dreadful the other day.
Yeah, he deflates a bit and touches his cap, and yeah, there was that whole thing with the old man on the bridge.
Yes.
He's looking at these shoe tips.
At which point I'm going to say, oh, it must be terribly cold stood out here all evening. And I'm going to sort of like offer him like a wee nip out my brandy flask, you know, just to like keep him warm while he's out here in the cold. Because obviously that's how brandy works.
Yeah. Yeah, he like very carefully, he has his like stack of papers on the side there, and he's like very carefully with 2 hands trying to have a little taste.
Let him have a little nip of that, you know, if it loosens his tongue a bit as well.
Yeah.
Happy days.
And he's like,
that'll do you the power of good boy. Keep you warm. Keep you warm.
Is this the newspapers you need to sell tonight?
Yes, I hope so.
I could offer to buy them all from you, and perhaps in return get a moment of your time. We could go to the pub across the street, and maybe you can have an eel pie or something.
Yeah, he's looking from his stack of papers. He's looking to you. He keeps like closing and opening his mouth like a fish on dry land. And
I'll say about myself and my companions. We're reporters of a sort. We're trying to find out a little bit more about the incident that took place. And well, as my friend was saying, if you were to to spare us a few minutes of your time to give us a genuine witness account, then and I'll sort of take my wallet out and I'll count out a few pound notes. Of course, we'd be happy to buy all of your newspapers, and you could knock off early for the night and go and get yourself a nice meal.
Oh, for sure, yeah. He is more than willing to sell you all his papers.
Yeah, I'll buy all of his papers off him.
Yeah.
Then, like say, adjourn to nearby pub.
Yeah.
Get him like an eel pie, some sort
pie,
of nice meal.
Yeah.
And
So Smash got to the pub, and
I'll have my notebook out so I look like a reporter.
Yeah. He's stuffing his face, and he's like, "So I'll get you what you need, but and thanks again for all this. Incredibly kind of you, sirs, and I was, because I'm rather hoping one day I could be the one to write the papers as well. So if you could put in a word, maybe. I don't exactly know how it works. Do you go to school for it or something?
Yes, you go to
you're older,
school.
or
I'm sure we can put a word in. But you're about to tell us about the horrible thing you saw.
Yeah. Also, you know his name by now. He's Tommy Wilson. He would have introduced himself to you as you walked to the pub.
Do you have a clear recollection of the night?
I saw, and he's trying to eat with the sort of attitude of a person who doesn't necessarily have ready access to this kind of food, maybe. So he's trying to eat at the same time as he talks, and
I'll say take your time, lad. There's plenty of time. We can always get you another one of those afterwards if you're still hungry.
Oh, and he wipes his mouth on his hand and says, I saw a tall man. He was, well, okay. So first, the old man was walking. He does this all the time. Every night, whenever I'm out here, he does his evening walk.
Yes.
I've noticed him. He always buys the paper, which is how I know him. So the good doctor had his walk. He bought the paper, and I was off trying to sell some more papers. So I didn't keep an eye on him the whole time he was in the park. But I was looking at him, and there was he was on the bridge over yonder, and he had a scuffle with a tall man, and the tall man then immediately afterwards was running away, and then there was another man like some distance away. I couldn't really tell, but there was someone else there as well, and that is that's as much as I know, aside from what's in the paper.
Would you be able to give a description of the tall man?
Well, he's sort of tall with a long coat, like you would have in the weather, and
his face. Did he have a full beard, a mustache?
I don't think he had a beard.
Did he wear spectacles?
No, I don't think so.
Did he have a flat nose?
I couldn't.
Basically,
really tell.
I'm trying to probe him enough, so Clinton can make a sketch.
Yeah.
If we can get enough details.
Yeah, and I think probably you do. So I will get a token on board.
Did you hear the tall man speak at all? Did he have an accent of any kind?
No, I didn't hear. I only heard the scuffle with whatever terrible things happened on the bridge, and then him hurrying away. But I didn't hear anyone talk or shout.
Start the scuffle? Was it the tall man? Was it the doctor?
It all happened so fast, but I think it looked like the tall man was hurrying up behind the doctor, and then they had a scuffle on the bridge.
So the doctor was not aware.
I don't think so. And he was doing his walk like he does, and he's never he doesn't walk with anyone. He does it alone. So I'm going to put a token on roll 20, which is the sort of sketch that Clinton is going to put together here for us. It doesn't have a name because you don't either.
The tall man.
Yes.
Stranger-like qualities.
Well, I dare say I've got enough to do at least a reasonable facsimile. That is, perhaps if I make a few copies of this, maybe we could show them about and see if anyone recognises the fella.
I would like to show it to my neighbor.
Oh, of course, and I also do another copy of it and give one to that is.
Yep.
And then obviously I'll buy it. We'll thank you and Tommy profusely, and I'll buy him like another pie or whatever. Leave him with a few pounds to see himself right for the evening.
I give him my card. If you see this tall man again, or the little squat man, perhaps, that would be a token of appreciation in it for you, if you would let me know.
Of course, sure, surely, and because I don't know how to thank you, he says with like crumbs and like food sort of on his hands, on his lips. There's one more thing, and I don't want to get into trouble for this.
You won't.
He turns kind of sheepish.
you have our word as gentlemen that anything you say will be kept confidential. We won't use your name at all.
And he's pocketing with his greasy fingers. He's pocketing the money that you've given him. He says, when it was all done and I had shouted for help, and I went to look. I went to look really quickly, and I didn't do a lot, but I did take this. And he digs into, like, opens his shirt a bit, and he digs out what seems to be like it's in, I suppose it would be like in a coat pocket for him. He digs out what looks like a whistle of some kind. He puts it on the table, and I'm gonna open a handout for y'all. I went to look because I like the doctor and I wanted to help. I couldn't.
Of course, we understand, lad. We understand.
But this was in his hand with the piece of string, leather rather, that they mentioned in the paper. But this was there also, and I took it because I thought it might be worth some money, and I could maybe sell it. And
we would certainly be interested in buying it for you.
Indeed. How about you sell it to us, lad?
He nods. He seems to be very keen on, like, I need to fence this.
Yeah, I'll just give him some money for the whistle.
Yeah, I'm fiddling with the handouts now.
So is it whistle like the police use? Oh.
It is not. And
is it one of them occult whistles?
It's a vampire whistle.
Yeah, it summons 1d4 vampires.
Yeah, that's a bad deal. Bad deal. Let's see. That is.
Oh my god.
Okay, so everyone should have the handout now.
Yes, I will definitely say it's one of them occult whistles.
So it's hard to sort of get a handle on it because you don't exactly know what the intention was there. But this one, this whistle is, it's dark, like you see in the picture. It's from some material you can't readily identify. Maybe it's heavily polished, like ebony wood or something, or maybe like a light stone of some kind, light silicate matter maybe. And Yeah, it doesn't have the little leather loop because that was left in the doctor's hand. But yeah, so it resembles a kind of head or maybe skull of some sort of animal. As you can see from if you take the little spot there for an eye, it's a sort of facial features or a skull of some kind of animal.
If you say
But it's not made of bone. It's like just a carved skull.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. It's not a skull. It's made from something else.
But best believe I'm going to be checking through my new A to Z of Anglo-Saxon mythology to see if there's anything like this whistle in there.
I mean, this doesn't ring a bell for our occult expert or our mythos expert.
I presume not.
I mean, there was someone who went slightly mad last time and was exposed to the mythos. This is not.
Don't know what you mean.
Tatters saying this. This is Dennis. Someone read a book that he shouldn't be.
Look, I developed a small obsession with lakes. That is, you have to keep bringing it up every 5 minutes.
Also, you can all recover a sanity point because you have pieced together something that someone didn't. You've gotten more context for this stuff. It's not immediately clear, but it is something.
I'll take the sanity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll ask because we may as well. But obviously, I don't have quite the background in the occult that my Parisian friend does. But does this mean anything to us? This particular type of whistle, used in conjunction with we know that there was some Anglo-Saxon mythology going on. Is there any connection there that we can make, or?
I don't think it fits anywhere immediately, at least.
Okay.
It is a thing, but there's not enough information for you to put it into context, really, at this point.
Okay.
It is not a vampire whistle, Dr. Morgan. That is all I know, though.
Oh, I'm glad you confirmed that.
But I've never seen anything like this before. But it will be in your book, Clinton.
Well, I hope so, but it's pretty damn dry going. I'm not going to lie to you. Where these academic texts aren't really my forte. I barely even scratch the surface of it. It's a block of text. It's going to take me ages to read my way through this. I wouldn't even know if they did mention a whistle in it.
Well, maybe if there are some pictures. If there is a whistle in there, then you won't need to read.
I'll flick through and see if there's any pictures. I'm guessing not,
no.
because it's an academic text.
Yeah.
I will, however, see. Again, I expect not. I will, however, see if there's an index or anything similar.
I wouldn't know personally. Would they index in the 20s? I suppose, yeah, maybe because it's from Oxford, so
At least, yeah.
yeah, so
yeah,
probably.
I'll have a leaf to the index, see if whistle is an entry there.
No.
I'm afraid not.
Yeah.
I wonder what sort of sound it makes, though.
Yeah.
Why not? It's a whistle. It's a whistle. It's nothing to call it. We bought it. I'll give it a bit of a see what sort of sound it makes.
It seems to make a fairly high-pitched whistling sound. There's none of that warble sound. I don't know how to describe it properly, but if you take a police whistle, you have that little blah, 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 blah in it. There's none of that. It's a one solid note. Yeah, and it seems to be a fairly shrill high note.
It reminds me of the little wooden flute. I don't know what it is called. With lots of little O's, but smaller.
What, a piccolo?
No, a little round thing. You put your hands like this, and there are lots of little O's, and you blow.
The musical arts was never really my speciality, I'm afraid, Olivier.
No, I'm just saying. But lots of people play it in France.
I'm sure they play a lot of whistles in France.
So obviously we'll be the young fellow look after himself, and we'll say our goodbyes.
Yep.
So lay down a couple more pound notes so he can sort himself out.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're sort of walking away from the pub, I say, so do you think it's worth having a more of a poke around in the park, see if we can find anything that's been missed? Or
Yes, the bridge, you said.
In the snow.
Anything else?
well, it's all I'm saying, Thaddeus, is while we're here, it's definitely worth having a look around. We may find nothing, but while we're here,
For the time being, maybe I should hold on to the whistle.
if that's what you wish.
Put it in my pocket.
Do you think we are going to summon some vampires?
Well, you might get all kinds of awful diseases if you go suckle on unknown objects.
Right, well, let's have a poke around by the bridge and see if we can find anything. It might be a waste of time, but like I say, while we're here, and I'll be using like my walking stick to like poke around in the snow, like by the bridge and whatever. I'm not really expecting to find anything, but
it doesn't yield much, and given the amount of traffic, there's not like, even if someone was there, there's been probably hundreds of people that might have passed by,
and the police will have searched the scene anyway. So
it doesn't yield much. However, it's Clinton, you remember the good picnic that you had before the first snows hit, and it's a nice memory. You spent Halloween here, so that's on the mind.
I don't subscribe to your vampire theory, but I do know it takes a long time. I mean, you have to hang the carcass up and then slit the throat, and that takes a long time. I don't know how you would do it in a stabbing like that. I did check the coroner's report to see if there's any toxicology. I don't know if you're familiar. When a snake bites, it injects an enzyme to make the blood not coagulate, so it flows freely.
When you start talking quite technically, you see Olivia's eyes just sort of glaze over a little bit.
Yeah,
He has no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, I think as soon as Thaddeus has started going into like his medical minutiae, I'll have been stood there like lighting up one of my expensive like French cigarettes and just like, I'm just gonna smoke this and wait till he like gets out of his system.
I think we're clearly dealing with a very strange series of events.
I think that's an understatement, that is.
Do you think that, my concern is with this cabbie. Do you think that he was looking for you specifically to take
I know he was.
as well? Well, no. As in to take the life of as well as this other doctor, or do you think he wanted to know where this doctor was through you?
He was asking my neighbor if I was the one living across the street.
So it seems like he was actually trying to find you rather than...
Yes, so that would suggest somehow that they might attempt something late at night.
You don't think he thought the other doctor was you? If he attacked from behind?
I suppose it's possible, but just to be on the safe side, Thaddeus, I don't think you should be staying alone at your house. I mean, perhaps we could we could keep a watch on your place in case this fellow turns up again.
Yes. Did you keep up your hunting skills, Clinton?
Well, I'm no man of the woods. I'll say that. I'm somewhat rusty. I can't claim that I'd be any great shakes in a scuffle, old boy. I know just enough to get myself away from trouble when it's occurring.
But yes, maybe we should do just that.
Yes, I think
Well,
for the next few days we're planning on that staking out like Thaddeus is.
His place.
Well,
His place.
it is a big house, so there's certainly rooms enough for everyone. If I could extend the invitation to you, Oliver.
So you're actually going to be living in the place. Like, what's the plan here? Are you staying in Clinton's place and keeping a watch on Thaddeus's place, or are you staying in Thaddeus's place?
Thaddeus understood it as they were staying in his place. Because he's seen Clinton's place.
What are you trying to say, old boy? But yes, if you wish to stay at your place, that's fine. I suppose I can bring a few of my sketchbooks with me and continue my work.
Certainly. I could have the young boy pick them up if you don't want to do it yourself.
Oh no, that's fine. I wouldn't want any of my. I'm at a very delicate stage of my current project. I wouldn't want anything interfered with. But wouldn't it be safer for us to take lodging somewhere that oversees your place rather than actually staying at your place? After all, if this person's trying to find you at your home for some nefarious purpose.
But I do not think Mrs. Jeffrey would be open for staying at her place.
No, that is my thought as well.
Oh, yes, I suppose that wouldn't be proper, really. With you being a widower and all, Thaddeus.
Yes, but it would do me a kindness and put my mind at rest. If you two gentlemen would do me the honor of being my house guest for the next few nights.
Of course, anything you need, Thaddeus.
So I'm guessing we go by Clinton's place and pick up charcoal, paper, and brandy.
Yeah, cigarettes, brandy, and charcoal and paper.
Yeah, the things you need to make art.
Yeah, that's right.
And they go home, and he offers them both some homemade cocaine to ease the nerves.
Give it that he's been tonicking me up for like the last few weeks while I'm doing this project. I'm game. I'll be like, yes, just I think we need to help us relax while we're on this stakeout.
A bit of the old snow.
I'd say a bit of Charlie to see us through.
Indeed.
I think I will stick to the brandy. Thank you.
Well, why limit yourself? I say, as I'm like snorting down some Charlie and like drinking some brandy.
It's gonna end up great.
That most well known of combinations to get you ready for a stakeout.
That's how you do a stakeout.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Coked up to the nines and drunk on brandy.
So I think we are going to cut to next day with you having not staked out at all at least not having kept an attentive one at least on.
Just to make I will sleep with my pistol at my nightstand.
Oh yeah. And not under your pillow?
No.
And my intent is, if I can arrange for myself to have like a room with like a window that overlooks the street, my intent is sort of fueled by this tonic that Thaddeus has provided me is pretty much to like draw through the night, to like really just throw myself into my project, and every now and again I'll just be like glancing out of the window, just to like keep a bit of an eye out.
Yeah.
So I'm an artist. I'm used to like being like coked out of my eyes and like drawing for days on end.
Yep. Right. I don't think you see anyone suspicious or anything of real interest during the night, and you have a good drawing session, and everyone's blazed out on alcohol and drugs, as you are.
Oliver was the sober one. He only stick to the brandy.
Yep. Very early tomorrow morning, I suppose, like Thaddeus ends up having to be awake because he lives here and there's someone who wants to meet him. And Clinton and Olivier are free to sleep in like the bohemian types that they are. But Thaddeus, like the first thing in the morning, someone's at the door. You get your, I suppose, like your robe or whatever, and go.
As his morning line.
Yeah. It's like, oh, need me some pick me up.
Yes.
You open the door, and outside is a good-looking, clean-shaven, and just over 6 feet tall man. Just to be clear, it's not the token that I I put down there. It's a different individual, which I will put below the 6 that we already have there. Token later. Cool. So there's a man with a noticeable Scottish accent, which I cannot do. So he introduces himself as Detective Inspector Andrew Taylor, and he says, "Good morning, Dr. Morgan, sir. I have some questions related to recent events involving you and a certain Dr. Trollope."
How fortunate we were. I was just about to go talk to you today. Come in, please.
Yep. So he comes in, and I presume we'll move on to like the dinner table, and he has a little notepad going, and he says, "So we have the appointment book of Dr. Trollope, and I assume you're aware of the events, seeing that you were going to consult with the police. So we have approached you as you were the last appointment of the doctor before the unfortunate events on that evening. So I have some questions for you. So you were approaching the doctor. You had an appointment scheduled. What did your business consist of, with the doctor?
It was a professional courtesy to a colleague of St. Agnes to question about the patient of Dr. Trollope, Alexander Roby.
Medical consultation.
Yes.
He says as he scribbles down notes. How did your business go with the doctor?
It seems to be fairly standard. Nothing to remark, I would say.
He makes some more notes.
He certainly didn't seem upset or anything.
Yes. Do you have any other insights you might offer to the doctor's frame of mind during that evening? Please understand that while my questions might be rather broad or ill-defined, we're working on putting the picture together to understand all the different facets of that evening.
I had a feeling that there was more he wishes he could say, but he elected not to. I do not know what that would be about, of course.
Not relating to your topic of consultation, then?
I would assume so, but It's a delicate matter with Alexander Roby.
Yes, of course, with patient confidentiality, naturally.
But other than that, no, nothing seemed untoward.
Anything you might be able to offer otherwise in your own observations with your business with the doctor?
Not with the doctor, no. Nothing really stood out. He seemed professional, well put together.
He makes
Good
notes.
man of the king.
Well, I'm at the same time I am happy to hear that nothing was amiss, but of course we will be working on establishing all the pertinent facts going forward.
Of course.
He opens his his I suppose it's like a cigarette case and takes out a card. Like, here's my card. The visitor's brief. However, the office might have more questions for you, and if anything comes to your mind, please contact us. We will be in contact as necessary, but I wanted to make a personal visit, given that you're not a suspect at this this turn of the events, to meet you personally to address this matter.
Well, thank you, Inspector Taylor. It's very courteous of you. I'll forward anything that might come to mind.
Very good.
A question of, let's say, personal curiosity. Was this a regular stabbing, or was there something odd about it? And when I say that, I will turn on my psychology lenses and scan him.
You lower your glasses.
Yeah, to see if he got any tells.
He says, because the case is open and all the other considerations are, of course, to be taken into account. I cannot give you the exact details, but we are currently working on the theory that this was a robbery gone wrong.
He's not really interested in what he's saying. He's interested in what he's not saying. So
yeah, please roll your psychic powers.
Yeah, my psychic powers. All right, rolling psychic powers. I constantly forget where the skills are. There we go. Sorry. Please be a success. Did you get anything? I seem to have a delay. No. Okay, I'll roll again.
Yep.
And of course the cats were fighting well. Okay, what is that, 14? I'm gonna push, I'm gonna use luck on that.
Okay. So can you phrase your psychic questioning again?
It's just when I asked him if there was anything strange about the stabbing.
Yeah. You get the idea that no, there wasn't, and that he's really sincere in his statement that they're working on this as a robbery gone wrong.
Well, I'll see him out and thank him for his time.
Yeah. Detective Taylor leaves, and as your household starts to climb out of the collective coffins that they have coked themselves in, you've got the kettle on. You had a housekeeper, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Mrs. Henderson, and she comes in on Wednesday, so she's here today.
Yeah. So she's helping with the various things as she comes in. One of those things is getting the mail, and she does get the mail, and there's a letter for you. So we cut to the next scene with the three of you at the breakfast table in various states of grogginess.
I imagine having fallen asleep like on my sketchbook. I've come downstairs, so like brushing charcoal off the side
Yeah,
of my face.
it's like half of your face is just gray. Yeah, so there's some bacon, there's some eggs going,
Oh, now we're talking.
and
For
the mail.
Olivia, it's a standard night of drinking a few brandies, so he's fine. He's
Yeah,
got black
yeah,
coffee.
yeah. Yeah, Olivia
Quite
is
chirpy.
yeah, chirpy, feeling good. Clinton is a bit, what? Huh? And Thaddeus, you get a letter from one Dr. Lionel Trollope. I will add that to your handouts now.
That was bad timing.
Here you go. And as you can see, the handwriting is a bit intense in this one. So presumably, are you letting the others know what's going on?
Yep.
With this one, okay.
Well, let's say he opens the letter and he
Mhm.
reads it out to them.
Yep. So
Can you read this?
Yes, but it's
Okay.
only because I've read the actual like typed out version, so that I
Okay.
know what it says. So yeah, it's from Lionel Trollope. It's dated the 3rd of November.
Damn British Post.
Dear Sir, I write this fast upon your leaving our meeting. I am going to be very frank. Please pardon any offense that I cause. I am not certain of Dr. Highsmith's motives in this case, but I sense a curiosity in you which I have decided to place my trust. I find myself in need to unburden myself of things that I have left unsaid. I hesitate to put these on paper, but nevertheless I proceed. Contrary to possible appearance, I am anxious to help Alexander. His father was a good friend of mine, so I have known him since he was just a small boy. He is a decent, gentle young fellow who has, I think, fallen in with circumstances that misuse him. I will talk of my first visit to Alexander in St. Agnes in June 1927. Dr. Highsmith told me he was unmedicated and lucid, and I found this to be the case, despite some periodic confusion on his part. But his conversation was odd indeed. He seemed quite unlike the young man I knew. One of the few references in our talk that I could make sense of referred to the book he authored, and upon my return to London, I undertook to look at it. You may be aware that 5 or 6 years ago, Alexander authored a volume called The Walker by the Lake. I had never picked it up before. I believed that it would be difficult for me to digest, but though much within it was indeed bizarre or puzzling, somehow it held me. Certain words or phrases therein reminded me of Alexander's talk at the asylum, and I could see that these writings spoke to the root of his incapacity. Oddly, sections of the narrative were in German. I transcribed them and later translated these passages. My second visit to Alexander was about 6 months after the first, just before Christmas. On this occasion, I found him sedated and correspondingly uncommunicative. Anxious that my journey not be a fruitless one, I thought to try an experiment. I had bought some papers with me, transcriptions of his book, and I began to read out one of the German passages in that language. I am not sure what I expected from this. I suppose I was merely seeking a reaction of some kind. I stumbled over the phrases. I am not skilled at languages, but when Alexander responded, he spoke the text along with me. As he did, I stopped reciting myself and tried to engage him. What happened next is difficult for me to say. He kept speaking now, and I could see he was overly excited, so I was reaching out to touch his shoulder. As I did, I suddenly felt very weak, and the next thing I knew, I was lying on the floor. I was inexplicably panicked. The madhouse attendant was down on one knee, giving me assistance, and Alexander stood above us. His face was his old one, and very sad. I am very sorry, doctor. I cannot change what you saw. And then I remember what that was. I will tell you that I think that Alexander knows how his father and sister died, and that their deaths were a result of events involving a person or persons using him. It seems Alexander came particularly under the influence of a Mr. Lawrence Bacon. Mr. Bacon is an antique merchant with premises on Liverpool Road, Islington, but I believe that he may also be a self-styled occultist. This information was gained at the behest of Alexander's brother, Graham, through a private detective hired in Wapping, a Mr. Vincent Tuck. I think Alexander would seek out Mr. Bacon if released. It bears mention that I am sure that these matters had nothing to do with Alexander's courtship of Miss Hartston, no matter what you might have been told. I feel that I have done the right thing in sharing what I know, although I ask that you use discretion for the sake of Alexander's family and possibly for your own security. I urge you to read the book and contact me again as soon as expedient. I will tell you more of the grounds for my suspicion of Mr. Bacon if you should consent to that meeting. And lastly, I bring myself to tell you what it was that I saw in that small cell in the asylum. As Alexander spoke, I was no longer there in the cell. I was walking in St. James's Park. I had just crossed the small suspension bridge to the south across the lake, and I was looking along the buildings on Whitehall. I have made this walk for every night for the last 30 years, and there I was, and everything was just as it should be. I knew it was not a dream. It was in the detail and the normalcy. The mallards setting up their noise on Duck Island, and up ahead the paper boy calling. The sun was setting. I reached into my pocket for my penny for the Standard, and as I did, I heard a scuffed step behind me, and I turned. I saw a sharp-faced man, quite tall, and his eyes held mine. "Keep still, please, sir," he said, and I felt a sharp pain, and then I was falling. He helped me down as I clung to him. I closed my eyes, and then I reopened them. When I reopened them, I was looking up at the sky. And there was the paper boy's white face, and I tried to say something to reassure him, but I couldn't. And then I knew no more. The Lord took me. I hope to hear from you soon. Yours sincerely, Lionel Trollope.
Well,
Well, yes, quite. So, I mean, looking at the stamp mark on this envelope, it was clearly sent before, sometime before.
It was actually not. It is the letter itself is dated, so he has like handwritten on the letter paper, the 3rd of November, but the postage stamp notes that it was sent yesterday. So it's on schedule. It just wasn't sent on time.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, obviously, Dr. Trollope sent this letter before he met his unfortunate end.
It was not sent before.
So it's been sent after Dr. Trollope was dead.
Yes. It was sent yesterday, and he's been dead for some days now. A couple of days at least.
He died on the 4th. The 3rd, whatever.
Yeah, 3rd.
The newspaper would come out.
Yeah.
So who on earth could have sent this letter after the good doctor was already deceased?
I would presume his housekeeper.
if it had already been put into the envelope, then...
You did meet the house manager, Mrs. Hughes.
I mean, if we assume that the date that he's written on top of the letter is correct, then it would, incredible though it may sound, it seems as though the doctor had some foreknowledge of his untimely demise in the park. And from what you've just read out, that is, he claims to have had some sort of vision when he visited St. Agnes, where he foresaw his own death.
Well, no, saw his own death, but yes.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that. And just to be clear, if what Trollop says is true here, he wrote this immediately after you left the meeting with him,
Yes.
and that night he took his walk and died. Yeah.
So this Vincent Tuck, remind me again, he was hired to.
Okay, so Vincent Tuck was hired by Graham Roby to basically look into Alexander's affairs. This would, of course, have been like years ago, like before the confinement to the asylum. But Graham hired Vincent Tuck to look into Alexander and what he's up to.
Yes. Yeah. Perhaps we should. I did get a call from an Inspector Taylor who's on the case of Dr. Traub's murder this morning. Before you gentlemen got up.
Does he believe that you are a suspect?
Well, he had noted that I was in Dr. Trollop's schedule, so he wanted to hear if of our meeting with him. I presume standard procedural stuff.
Yeah, you were one of the, as far as you know, you were one of the last people to see him live and talk to him.
Oh, this person met him and he died the night. Better talk to him. So it seemed this Lawrence Bacon was the puppeteer of Alexander Roby.
It certainly seems like that, or at least
And
that's what the doctor believed.
Yeah, and if you take that, we could tie that into Alexander claiming that he was responsible because he had contact with this Lawrence Bacon, who would presumably be the real murderer.
Well, I think as well, certainly we should try and get hold of a copy of this this walker by the lake and see what we can make of that. That seems to figure largely and prominently in the events described in the letter.
And also, the doctor explicitly says that go look it up.
Indeed.
And I will talk to you afterwards.
I don't suppose any of you read German.
No, unfortunately.
Well, no, but I'm sure I'm sure with the right incentive I can probably find someone to translate it.
Well, I'll ask. Mrs. Henderson, do you read German by any chance?
Give me a luck roll, that is.
It does not? No, it hasn't come up.
Yeah,
there we go. No.
No, 9 on both accounts.
9!
So, yeah, no, she unfortunately does not.
Well, my plan at the minute is to go out, find a copy of this book. I know a lot of like bookstores, etc. Get hold of a copy of the book, and then I'm sure if we like splash a bit of the cash around, we can find someone who like speaks German and just say, "Could you like copy this writing out for us?"
Well, yes, yes, of course, we could certainly hire someone. Do you feel we should work together with Inspector Taylor?
Well, I don't see as that we. I think you should certainly make him aware of the letter and its contents. I mean, it's practically your civic duty, but I don't see that we have anything else other than suspicions to report at the moment.
Yes.
Well, yes, but also we have taken the whistle. That is evidence.
Well, we could give him the whistle.
Well, I was thinking the opposite. But I think he'll become suspicious if he sees that we have somehow acquired this unconventionally.
However, we could simply tell him that the whistle was included in the letter if we did wish to hand it over.
Well, we could just, not mention the whistle.
Well, I think, given that we don't know much about it at the moment, we're probably best to hold on to that and not mention it, but you could certainly show them the letter.
And at best, if he somehow asks about it in the future, we'll just feign ignorance and, we had so much going on, we completely forgot about it.
Indeed. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't you go and drop the letter off for the... obviously, we'll make a copy of it. Drop the letter off for the detective inspector, and I'll go and ask around at a few of the bookshops I frequent, see if I can locate a copy of this Walker by the Lake.
Quite.
So that's my plan. Hit the bookshops.
Yep. Yippers. I'm just setting up the... Well, I suppose I can do that later. But I'm putting the letter in each of your handout folders because you have access to it now. All right. And again, like if you want to specify some points in the letter, I can. Well, I don't know if I want to type out the whole thing again, but I can read it to you if there's something you wanted to return to. However, bookstores. Give me a luck, good Clinton.
Huh.
Yeah, boy.
Where he's going.
With Clinton, it's always like critical or hard success. Okay.
It's all the coke he takes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. Okay, let us see. Where is it? Here. Right. So you find the book. It is in. Even though you succeeded, but it is entirely by luck, and there is a reason to why you didn't find the fact that he made this book before when you were looking into Roby, and that it's very minuscule pressing of the book, and you managed to track down a copy. It's quite tattered, and you find it in a secondhand bookstore in the back, and you managed to buy it for not much at all. It's not an expensive purchase, and let's see, 97 numbered pages. It's a small book, 6 by 4 inches, and it's bound in all white cloth, blank cover and spine. The title page gives the author's initials, which would be AR. Date, which is 1923, and I have this handout, so you don't need to necessarily make notes of this, but it's made by Whitehall Press in London, and there's a dedication to Samuel Taylor Coleridge, which reads, "Suppression prepares for overflow." And it's only 97 pages, so I'm going to give you the handout. You can just blast through that text with the quickness. There we go. And even the title turns out to have been in German, which is it didn't help in finding the book, because you were looking for the Walker by the Lake, and instead is Der Wanderer durch den See. Right. Do we want to read this aloud? Because I can, if you're willing to listen, I can rattle on.
I'm quite happy to read it if you want.
Oh yeah, well yeah, please.
So I imagine I'll go back to with this tattered, like knackered old copy of it. Go back and I say, don't tell me the devil to find it. Even the damn title's in German. I say, well, from what I can see there, the text split into 2 acts or 2 chapters, and it's talking about the dreams of a fellow in here, almost written like one of the case histories you've talked about, Thaddeus. I suppose you could read it as autobiographical, but I'm not really sure. There's no mention of studying a subject or of interviews with the person. The text isn't organised like a dramatic reading or anything like that. Most odd. The dreams, which I had to pay someone to translate because it's all in German, although the rest of the text is in English, so I don't know whether the person they're talking about was German. It focuses on some sort of power that the man explores and slowly comes to know. The power was once on Earth and is essentially unknowable. It describes it as being, it would view humans in the way that we would view ants crawling around on an anthill. The dreamer in the translated portions refers to the power as the king, and I raise my eyebrows when I say that. But twice early on uses the synonym Kaiwan, I think it's pronounced, and other times the unspeakable one. The writer absorbs pieces of knowledge through periods of intense dreaming, but interspersed a period when he doesn't dream at all, almost as though he's actually denied them. Eventually he visits a city, Carcosa. You may recall that was mentioned in the play we went to see, Thaddeus, which opens up his senses even more. It's a place of beauty and contentment, but it's like it challenges his perceptions somehow. I've picked out a few quotations from the book that I'll read you, Thaddeus. But where, who or what is Halley? In his reading, the text, either by designs or uncertainty, are obscure and even contradictory. In his dreams, contradictions are also rife, but he felt that Halley was the lake itself. The reader imagines that this is the first race to own dominion over this planet, and it will be the last. That is wrong thinking, but each must come to this conclusion on his own account. It is something one has to see for oneself and not be told. He knows his opinion would be derided or else provoke anger, so he doesn't try to persuade. I share it for him here. And then there's the sort of sundry stuff, and the book concludes with, some would be disconcerted by the structure of this treatise, but it is for us to walk on the earth in Carcosa. That is the 3rd act, that passage may or may not be written. And then there's some rotting German that I didn't get translated. But then immediately following that in English, it says, and seeking the vision, he makes the yellow sign in front of him with his fist, such as I, standing before him, could read it plain to bespeak the end of the day. And that's where it ends.
That is disturbing. It seems, at first I was under the idea that this was some sort of mass hysteria.
Well, obviously, the reference, if we take the amount of references to what we saw in the play, and obviously I recall from the original French version that I've been studying, it mentions the king, presumably the king in yellow. Certainly the yellow sign is mentioned in the original. And I'm sure Halley was mentioned in the play as well when we watched it. And there was definitely something in the play where they were saying that they mentioned Halley, they mentioned Carcosa, they mentioned that their kingdom became Carcosa, yes. And that seems to be what the author's saying in this book. Well, we can't deny there's some connection between this and the play, so presumably the original French version.
It's safe to assume that the source is the same.
Which is quite troubling.
It is, but I wouldn't go so far as call it vampires just yet.
No, of course not. But Olivia, I know you have more to do with these sort of like outre notions. Does the name Kaiwan mean anything to you? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Mr. Tentacle Master?
No.
No. This sounds Chinese almost.
Say yes.
Yep. The parts where Holly and Carcosa are mentioned are familiar to, well, having been exposed to some of the gossip surrounding the infamous play that was never performed when it was written back in the day.
Also, I was going to ask, and feel free to say no, because I don't know how widely known this would be. But obviously, as John, I know that Aldebaran's a planet. I don't know how widely known that is at the time.
It's a star.
I know it's some sort of celestial body out of character.
Yeah.
But,
No, it is. It's very easy, and that was a part of the thing that I was going to give you if you rolled a success with your terrible rating in astronomy back in the asylum. I was going to talk about that, but yes, you can. It's truly easy for you to delve into that now that you have the names in the book, right? Because you have Aldebaran there, and you can.
Okay, so given that I've obviously paid someone to translate some of the other German, would I have been able to get them to translate this last little bit?
Yes. So it seems like the text, like the thing that you just read, is all the dream bits are in German. So you've been having those translated, and this particular bit is let me get that. Yep. So this one as well is in German. I myself don't speak it extremely well or at all, but I can certainly replicate sounds. So the part that we're talking about here is at the very end, which we just had the quotes from. The second to last thing in the book is Hilf mir, Kaiwan, ich ein Trauma, suche eine Vision vom rotem Aldebaran und schwarzem Hali. Ich mache das Zeichen, which translates in English to help me, Kaiwan. I, a dreamer, seek a vision from red Aldebaran and black Hali. I make the sign. And then it moves on to, and seeking the vision, he makes the yellow sign in front of him with his fist, such as I, standing before him, could read it plain enough to bespeak the end of the day. So that's the English version of the end.
I'm thinking now that Dr. Traub has come to an unfortunately end, that it would be prudent perhaps to get Alexander Roby back to London and off the morphine. So how do you think it sounds if I go to Graham Roby and ask if you would have any objections if I take over his treatment?
I honestly don't know.
Are you thinking you can prise some more information out of him?
Well, when we went down there, Oliver, he was heavily sedated, and it was nigh impossible to get anything out of him other than well, these words. And I leafed through my notes and gave him the transcript from his fever trance speech. If you would share that with Jason.
Sorry?
I give Jason the transcript of Roby.
Oh,
words.
yes. Now I got okay, so that would be this. All right, so duplicate that. Okay, so you now have the copy, Olivier?
He was very heavily sedated by laudanum, but when Clinton showed him a drawing of this so-called yellow sign, he spoke these words.
And if you believe you can speak to him more effectively without the sedation, and well, that you're the doctor, so I trust you.
I do believe morphine is a hell of a drug, so it's not a good healthy substance as cocaine is.
What? So you're going to use cocaine on him instead? Is that even possible? Is it legal?
Well, yes, it's quite legal. I make it myself.
Not that I mind the legality, but more, so you don't get into any trouble with the police.
No, it's a quite a tonic for the blurry mind.
Like I said, I trust you.
I don't believe it will have any great adverse effect on your health. Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Ginormous syringe.
Yeah. But yes, I would like to get Alexander Roby off the Lord Room, and he clearly knows more than we are able to get at this current state.
Hmm.
And now that Dr. Trollope is dead, I'm not sure what they would do. I mean, clearly, Dr. Highsmith, you will agree in this, Clinton, wanted to get rid of Alexander Roby.
Oh yes, quite.
Whereas Graham Roby was quite keen on keeping him at an asylum or clinic.
You might be able to answer this question, Thaddeus. We obviously had the news about the inheritance earlier on. What would the effect on someone's inheritance be if they were deemed clinically insane and they were confined to a facility, such as Alexander Roby has been?
I presume if you are deemed insolvent, what's the word when you are they take away your adult status? It's not solvent.
There's
there's probate type thing.
It's when you're deemed incapable of managing your own affairs.
Power of attorney.
That's right, yeah.
So they can do that, but
see, I'm just wondering if this does all go back to the inheritance. I mean, if we were looking at this from an extremely mercenary point of view, that might be a reason for them wanting to keep Roby in the facility to get their hands on the inheritance.
Yes. That seems to be the base human nature.
Not quite.
Money. And Mr. Graham is a banker. And they're very keen on money.
Indeed, and as someone who deals with money a lot, he would almost certainly be aware of what the effects on the inheritance would be were his brother to remain confined.
Yes.
I'm sure he's pored over those files many times.
But if we can do this, we don't need to concern ourselves with Graham Roby for a while anyway, if he signs off the papers. Do they have telephones in this day? Is that a thing?
I believe they do. I'm not exactly sure of how prevalent they are, but being people of means.
Perhaps we should attempt to contact Mr. Highsmith and hear if he likes the idea. And if he is willing to sign off on the idea, that will be an easier sell to Mr. Graham Roby. I mean, I think we all agree this 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 is very strange, and there's certainly something more going on, and perhaps even involving your vampires.
I think
It wasn't certain that it was a vampire. It was.
I think your misplaced humour aside, that is, it's quite obvious whatever's going on doesn't involve vampires, but
No.
there's clearly something not normal about this case. I mean, if it were just the odd reference to the play we'd seen, I might pass it off as simple happenstance, or
Yes,
but everything seems to lead back to that.
but the key here seems to be, if you want to get rid of someone in this day and age, you simply shoot the person and be done with it. When you go out of your way to drain every last ounce of blood in someone's body, that takes considerable more skill than I have, and any surgeon that I know. And that leads to two things: either you feed on the blood as the vampires, or perhaps for some occult reason.
Yes, it is unusual is that they took all the blood. I've never heard of any ritual involving pints and pints of it.
No.
Unless they're storing it for something else.
Well, you can't really store blood that long. But yes, well,
Tell you what,
it doesn't matter what we believe. If the person who took the blood believes it has magical properties, that could certainly be the case. Why they did take it.
That's right. I mean, obviously, all this rot isn't true, but if, as you say, that is, if these people believe it to be true, that could be dangerous in and unto itself. But I tell you what I'm thinking I should do. That is, and Olivia, as I said, I've studied the original text that Mr. Estes had, and there's some startling similarities to this book here. What I think I'm going to do is, since Mr. Estes said I was free to come and study the original as and when I see fit, I think I should go and pay him a visit, take this book with me, and just double check to spot any other similarities that may have escaped me. Obviously, a lot's happened since I last looked at that book, but I think it's definitely worth double checking.
Yes, maybe you could go with him, since you are fluent in French, and I do believe the original is in French.
Well, yes, of course.
Right?
All right, so we jump to Talbot Estes. He's an American man, and is again in.
I'll buy a bottle of bourbon on the way and give it to him. I know he loves his bourbon.
Yeah, he does. So you give him the bourbon. And says, Mr. Hardy, this is much appreciated. Please come in.
Not at all, my friend. Please allow me to introduce my friend Olivier Favre.
Favre.
Sorry, although I speak French fluently, I've never truly mastered the pronunciation like a native.
Magnifique. He shakes his hand, talks to you a bit in French. He has an accent, but he speaks the language as well. Please make yourselves at home. I will. Will it be the study again?
Well, yes, I love to study the text. I was telling Olivia here all about your splendid performance. Alas, obviously he's not had the chance to see it himself. But you may also be interested in this. I've come across a quite a happenstance in a second-hand bookshop. I was looking for some supporting material that I could draw in for the pieces that I'm working on for you, and I found this, and I'll show him the book.
Yep. So he takes it because there's nothing on the cover to imply what it is.
The title's in Germany, but it translates roughly as "The Wanderer by the Lake."
Oh yes, the Walker by the by the lake. It is familiar to me. I have read this book. This copy is in terrible condition.
I know. As I say, I found it in one of the small back alley. So quite difficult to get. It just caught my eye, something about it, and I picked it up for a song. But as you can see, it's in a sadly dilapidated condition.
Yes, people have no respect for the written word these days.
But it might be interesting. So I can't go into the details, but the author of it. You recall my companion, Dr. Morgan, when we met after the performance. He's actually working on a case that involves the author of this book.
Really? Now that is interesting, extremely interesting. And he goes to one of his bookshelves and he runs a hand along and picks out his mint copy and shows it to you. It's and puts it back. Quite interesting. How did you find, or rather, how did your friend find himself involved in the business of Alexander Roby?
No, I'm sure you'll appreciate that. Obviously, I can't go into too many details. Obviously, my brother-in-law is a professional, but Mr. Roby finds himself in a rather unfortunate state of disturbedness, if you understand what I mean.
I'm not sure I take your meaning. Please understand, I know very little about the author himself. Do you imply some sort of mental impairment on his part?
Indeed, he's currently confined for his own benefits and that of those around him. Also, I can't go into much more detail, patient confidentiality and all that.
Lunatic asylum is...
Yes, that sort of a place. But it struck me that some of the things mentioned in the case seem to reference back the original work that your masterful adaptation was based on. So I was hoping that myself and Olivier could look at the original text and perhaps compare it and contrast it with my somewhat dog-eared copy here.
Of course. Shall I bring 3 glasses for the bourbon?
Of course, very, very generous of you.
Good. It is settled. You will find the copy where you left it. I believe the bookmark is on the same page as you left it.
Splendid.
I will be back presently with 3 glasses. And he goes away. And Olivier, this man is intense. He's almost manic in how he
everything he says is
himself.
A statement.
Yeah.
It's like, this is happening. I am doing this. This will occur.
Yeah. And
I will get some glasses for that bourbon.
Yeah. He has this weird vigor in him, which is quite intense. Yeah, but he goes off to get classes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna I bring this a fairly big book. Is it the original text?
It's not massive. It was presumably it was made in the 19th century. Yeah. So it was not like a giant it's manuscript.
Not massive,
yeah.
So I'm basically going to open it to the page I was on previously, and I'll quickly skim back through some of the pages I've already looked at, pointing out a few sort of salient passages to Olivia. And as I'm going through, I'm going to have the copy of the Walker by the Lake next to me, and anything I see that seems to be in both of them, I'm going to just underline in my copy of the Walker by the Lake.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so you spend your time doing that. Olivier, I presume you're in the reading business as well.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, to be honest, I'm hoping Olivia might pick up on some of the. Because obviously, I do speak and read French, but like I said, I'm not a native, so there might be some subtle nuances that I've actually missed in the text. So.
Yeah. All right. So you do an evenings of fairly intense bourbon-fueled study of literature.
It's the only way to study.
Yeah. Good. I think we can jump forward from there. It's just to give us a little bit of a timeline idea here. So you now have several volumes here, all of which take time to digest properly, as we are aware when it comes to these quote-unquote important books in Call of Cthulhu. So you've already sufficiently digested the King in Yellow, Clinton. So anyone wanting to read and digest that, it's 10 days, I think, we settled on.
Yeah.
And for The Walker by the Lake, I believe that is... where I just had it here. No?
And if if you listen carefully, you can just hear the wind whispering, "Make a sound roll."
in a week. For British gods, religion and myth in the Western kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon Britain, that is a dense work, so it takes about 2 weeks to dissect. However, here we go. For the Walker by the Lake, it's a week. So 7 days for Walker by the Lake, 10 days for King in Yellow, 14 days for British gods.
Okay.
A week to read 72 pages.
No, I mean it's digest.
Yeah, to fully absorb all the references and everything.
Basically, the idea is that King in Yellow is a play, and the book is a play.
Yeah.
It doesn't take you like 10 days to read the play. It takes you 10 days to absorb the Cthulhu mythos skill points from it and go insane. That's what takes the 10 days.
What I'd like to suggest, Dennis, so we can
the study. Okay, so
yeah,
I'd like to suggest so that we can jump to the end of this. That if we all study those books for the required amount of time, we can just jump to the end of that period.
I think Thaddeus is more interested in writing to Highsmith and hearing if he would be adamant to the idea of taking over the care of Alexander Roby here in London, and he would take some of his. I presume he knows a place that he trusts. He can have him put up in.
Yeah. So you know how this works, and it's not entirely up to Highsmith. Highsmith is going to make a recommendation to Roby's release hearing, and then there's going to be some sort of magistrate who's going to decide what happens. But yeah. So, do we want to take a bit of time for those who want to read, and then for you to have some correspondence with Highsmith?
I mean, Clinton already read the play, right?
Yes,
And
Clinton has read
Yes,
it.
but now I've got other books to read, Thaddeus.
Yeah. Is
All the books.
Olivia, is he interested in reading any of the books?
Really only if there's any French that needs to go, being checked and stuff. But he's not interested in going through cover to cover every single thing.
Yeah, I mean, since Trollope asked me to read the Walker by the Lake, I'll give that a go. Just because he was asked to.
All right. In which case, why don't we all read The Walker by the Lake?
We can all go insane.
Then we can jump to the end of that period and continue.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned to you, I want to try. Like when we get near the end of it, I want to try a small nocturnal experiment.
Yeah.
So we'll make a book club, buy 3 copies.
Yeah.
Okay, you need
have
to read 5 pages till tomorrow.
With Talbot's copy, because he has one, you have access to 2. So you can, even though you still have to take shifts, it's much easier with 2 copies than 1. So, all right. So we can just go ahead then with this. So, yeah, it's Walker by the Lake, and let's see. Yeah, it takes a week to absorb. Cool. So we move ahead by a week. And please, sanity rolls, everyone.
There we go.
Because, spoilers, it's a mythos text.
Oh, look at that. Clinton Hardy represented with the sanity.
Just about.
Spend some luck. I don't know if you can on sanity rolls.
No, you can't. Not on sanity.
Oh, Thaddeus is so sane it hurts.
Yeah. He actually is more sane now. So what that means is both Clinton and Thaddeus lose 1 sanity, and Olivier rolls a d6 for his.
Well, that means my sanity's back to what it was at the start of this session.
I also lose 1.
Cool. Yep. So
Sorry.
everyone loses 1, and you all gain 3 percentiles of Cthulhu mythos.
3, okay.
Yes. Yeah, 3. It's very small. However, it's almost entirely the quote-unquote good stuff. Really, it's the bad stuff, but it's very dense. With
check me out with my 9 in Cthulhu mythos. And as I
What did you have?
I'm on 9 in Cthulhu mythos at the minute because I've already read The King in Yellow.
I don't understand. Do you mean 9?
No, he doesn't speak German.
I told you before. That's how you say it.
And as I say, I want to try a small experiment as we're getting towards the end of reading the Walkabout the Lake.
I can't believe we're here reading these books.
You are, and not only that, but if I'm correct, and I think I am, I've been referencing the some of the magic stuff in the rule book.
Some of the magic shit.
Yeah.
What did you roll for your loss, Jason?
Oh, I still got a 1, which
Okay,
is quite
that's lucky.
good.
I think it's if you lose 5, you get a derangement or something.
No,
Yep.
it's 6 now.
Is it 6? Okay.
Yeah, you get your whole what's it called? Bout of Madness stuff.
Yeah. So, all of you can tell whether or not you care about that is entirely a different deal, but you can all tell that there is indeed a sort of occult mechanism in the Walker by the Lake. Some crude individuals might call it a spell.
And I am especially interested, given the mention of lakes, and I had that brief fascination, strange fascination with lakes after reading The King in Yellow. So I'm like, lakes, right? Everything seems to come back to lakes.
You can tell that there is this occult matrix, a series of occult actions of significance, and it is called Bespeak the End of the Day. And if you wish, you could try and study that. It will take more time, as we've already learned that these things take time. But you know, you're all aware that there's a spell written into the book. And give me, all of you, either a hard intelligence roll or a Cthulhu mythos roll, which I guess it's going to be.
I'll give it a bit of Cthulhu mythos roll, why not? See if I can roll below a 9.
So presumably you just click hard on the options before you roll.
Yeah.
No. Not at all.
No, nothing for me.
How about Thaddeus? The Daddius.
Versus 9. Oh, you did myth. Oh, right, mythos. That's fine.
No, I think he's in denial.
Yeah, so
Thaddeus is like, I'm good.
Yeah, he skips that. He's like, yep, I've got my legs, I've got my Aldebaran, I'm good.
So, as I said, when we're getting into the end of it, I'm going to try this experiment. 'Cause it all comes back to dreams and lakes, and they keep banging on about the yellow sign, which I know what it looks like. I've drawn it before. So what I'm going to try and do is, the pictures I drew of the various lakes when I had my brief obsession with lakes. When I go to sleep, I'm gonna like go to sleep surrounded by all those pictures of lakes, and I'm gonna stare at my drawing of the yellow sign before I go to sleep, and then I'm gonna try and like think about lakes as I drift off to sleep, just to see if anything happens, because like they keep banging on about dreams. I'm like,
yeah. Let's call it a hard luck roll, Clinton.
oof.
There we go. No, that's a regular roll.
I don't know how you make a hard roll. Oh, well, on me. Right, sorry, that's how you do it. Let me reroll.
Yeah.
You make it hard.
Do you wanna?
That's 2 luck. No,
Can you? Yeah.
I presume you can't spend luck on a roll.
It's the one where you can't use willpower to boost your willpower rolls. Righto. So, I think you dream of being on, like laying on sand on a shore, and you're staring up at a gray sky. You can tell like there's clouds. There's some like dark silhouettes of birds flying above against the dark gray clouds, and there's waves lapping softly at your feet. You don't have shoes on, you don't have socks on. There's a series of waves that gently brush against your naked feet, and that's what you do for like you don't remember any other dreams. You remember this one when you wake up, but that's what happens.
I think I'll probably be like repeating this most evenings going forward. Just because I'm seeing it as like fantastic inspiration for like the artwork I'm drawing on. So when I go to bed, I'll have like a sketchbook and my charcoal's there. So like when I wake up and it's fresh in my mind, I can like draw what I've seen. Because I'm not thinking of it as like any particular like there's like occult significance. I'm just thinking that like all this is connected with the play. I've been commissioned to do a series of sketches and paintings about the play. So maybe if I can sort of like get myself thinking about that and dreaming about that, I can achieve some of the dreamlike quality that was present in the play.
Yeah, and you still have that one picture of a lake that you did in your like furious lake obsession.
Yeah,
and it's still your favorite. It's still
I think that's probably the one that's like facing my bed when I go to sleep. So it's like the last one I see before I go to sleep.
Yeah, it has that je ne sais quoi. All right, so looking at the clock, I guess we could cut it here and sort of be on schedule for the first time ever. Or if you guys want to, we can continue for a little bit more. I'm fine either way.
Seems like a good place to stop.
Yeah, seems like a good place.
Yeah. So we fade away on just the image of Clinton laying on featureless sand beach, staring up at this gray sky, and then black waves coming in, this black-colored water lapping at his feet, and then roll credits.